very stormy night. Hopefully it won't get any worse and then everybody can get home safely. But we're glad people are here. And my guess is that there are going to be people kind of trickling in throughout the evening. So we'll go through the program, and obviously it's being recorded as well. So I will tell you that this whole idea for this meeting started out first with a conversation and then a drive in a truck around with Twana Chick around the southeast area. This happened many months ago. Twana sort of kidnapped me, put me in the truck, drove really, really fast, not that fast, but drove really quick around the area and showed me the amount of growth that was going on in this area. Number of new houses, number of new apartments. It led to the thought that we needed to make sure that everyone, residents, metro departments, the school system, everyone is watching what's happening in this area to make sure that the needs of the community are going to be addressed. That is what's going on tonight. It's an informational meeting with lots of department heads and chances for you to fill out comment cards, which I'll talk about in just a minute, and questions and answers. We're just glad everybody's here. There are a lot of council members represented here because we invited 12 council member districts, but we are in Council Member Antoinette Lee's district, and she is here to welcome you all. Council Member Lee, you're on.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say hello. It's so good to see everybody here. This was a rainy, kind of funny night, so I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're safe. Welcome to Antioch High School. Welcome to District 33. I am not going to introduce people. I'm leaving that to the Vice Mayor, but I did see some elected officials come in, some of our state officials. I do not see him right now, but I did see him come in, so I'm sure he is going to be announced. And I just hope that you all have get some good information. There's questions that we have in our area about the infrastructure. When it's time, I hope you will bring those questions forth. I hope you will make sure to share your information with the Vice Mayor, and any questions you have, the departments are here to answer. So thank you once again for coming. Be safe, and let's have a great meeting. Thank you.
Okay, as Council Member Lee said, we were trying to, in terms of this meeting, we were trying to make sure that we didn't leave anyone out. So we invited 12 council districts and their council members. And I will tell you that those individuals, those council members, have already been very loud and clear about the needs of this community and making sure that they are properly obtained. So they have been on our backs, rooting for you all, making sure that the needs of this area are properly addressed. So I'm going to recognize some of the council members that are here. I know some of them are still on their way. You just saw Council Member Antoinette Lee from District 33. Councilwoman Joy Stiles from District 32 is there. There she is. Council Member John Rutherford from District 31 is here. There's Council Member Rutherford. Council Member Sandra Sepulveda is here. She's District 30. Councilmember Delisha Porterfield is here, District 29. Councilmember Bob Nash is here, District 27. There's Councilmember Nash. Councilmember Russ Bradford is here, District 13. And I think I saw Councilmember Robert Swope. There he is, District 4. Did I miss any council members? Tanaka Vircher with her head down, taking notes. There she is. I didn't see her at first. Council Member Tanaka Vircher, District 28. Council Member Vircher has been particularly interested in the police department and the police precinct. All right. I know that State Representative John Ray Clemens there he is. Your state representative is here. I know Council Member at Large Sharon Hurt was going to try to be here. She wasn't feeling very well. So she said if she didn't make it, just to send her best wishes for a good meeting. Anybody else, any elected officials that I missed? Okay, we will have some other folks coming in. Let me tell you a couple things before we get started. We had comment cards up at the front. Those are for you to fill out if you have a particular question. You could have either filled it out at the beginning, or you can fill it out during the first part of the presentation. The first part is going to be the department heads talking about stuff. Make notes. If you have questions, let us know. If you fill out a comment card, raise your hand, we'll come get them. The idea was to make sure we don't have a lot of people asking the same questions. So when we get through with the department heads, we're going to go through the questions, and then assuming we have time, which I hope we will, then if people want to come down, we've got microphones and we can try to get questions answered that way. On the comment cards, fill out your email address so that we can send it out to whatever questions you have, we can get them answered. If we don't get them answered here, we can send them out to everyone, okay? Again, we're going to start in just a second with the planning department. This is supposed to be non-confrontational. If you all get mad, throw stuff at Representative John Ray Clements. He's right there. Raise your hand. John Ray, he'll take the beating for us. He does it every day, so it just is kind of usual for him. Again, questions and answers should start around 7:30, and then we plan to be out of here at 9 o'clock, okay? Let's see. I think that's it. We have a special guest that I'm waiting for to come by. I don't think he's quite yet here. There he is. So just right on cue, it is my great privilege to introduce to you the mayor of Nashville and Davidson County, John Cooper. Mr. Cooper, you're right on time.
Hi. Well, thank you, Vice Mayor. As a band parent, I'm often here with all of these fantastic orchestra and band competitions here. I'm grateful to Antioch High School for having them. And what a all-star cast you have here, Vice Mayor. Thank you all for being here. I'm grateful for the opportunity to come to Antioch and talk about growth, because this is the challenge of Nashville. Everybody here, we are growing. We have to do it the right way. And I think, Vice Mayor, you've introduced all the council people who are partners in this project here in Nashville in making our future the best that it can be. Not putting our head in the sand and saying, oh, we are going to grow. We have to grow the right way. And that is investment, and that is investment right here. And this community understands what underinvestment is, unfortunately, because the city has not in the past invested enough in Southeast Nashville, but we are working hard to try to correct that. Now, investment in education is not negotiable. Having the best paid teachers in the state, having paid family leave, have to invest in housing too, and affordable housing investment's gone up 5 times. You have to have the right big enough plan for homelessness, frankly, for our unsheltered neighbors. Finally, I think the city does with a Housing First plan at $50 million for the first time ever. We can respond to a problem that has lingered for a generation. And we can't do that. To have a plan as big as the problem is, frankly, in that regard. But we are talking about a neighborhood, and there's nothing more important than investing in neighborhoods. And you see it actually in this building, in this very auditorium. There's going to be a brand new lighting system. This building is going to have upgraded gym bleachers, brand new baseball scorecard. There's going to have a resurfaced track. But each of the council members that are here has worked hard in their neighborhood for improvement. Now, so important is Councilmember Vercher's new 9th precinct in her district, groundbreaking this spring. And when it opens in mid-2024, it's going to need 130 officers. But I'm glad to say we've had 6 academy classes this year. We have 8 academy classes next year. With this department, we are able to recruit to have this upstaffing, not just in the 9th district precinct, but in the whole city. But they require equipment too. So there are 400 new police cars. There's 66 more EMS and 86 new firefighters. And in the meantime, Mill Ridge Park is set to open by spring 23, in part to advocacy with Councilmember Lee. And then Councilmember Rutherford on a key sidewalk project on Old Hickory Boulevard from Benden Creek to Mill Creek Greenway. And Councilmember Bradford on a sidewalk project on Winthorne Drive, and Councilmember Evans on a guardrail project on New Hope Road and Dry Fork Creek, and on Blackman Road, a stormwater infrastructure. A replacing of the Antioch Community Center playground with Councilmember Stiles. All these are being tracked on our neighborhood investment tracker, $3.3 billion of neighborhood investment. McCall Street's stormwater infrastructure with Councilmember West, and then Councilmember Porterfield's district, a new bike lane on Priest Lake Drive. And Councilmember Nash here on a new bike lane on West Crest Drive and Brewer Road and North Hilton Drive. These are what makes Nashville great, is this level of investment finally getting back out to our neighborhoods. In Councilmember Sepulveda's district, a first Metro Park. Imagine a council district that had no park. That is opening right off of Tusculum Road. We're grateful for Councilmember Sepulveda making sure that that's a priority. But to step back, schools, there's $102 million budgeted for improvements in schools in Antioch. And Antioch High is not the only one. There's $19 million for new additions to Cane Ridge, $4.2 million for design and a new Cane Ridge Middle School. There are field upgrades for both Cane Ridge and Antioch that was announced last week, $1 million for each of those, and all of our other high schools having at least $1 million of improvements in their playing fields. No, but infrastructure in our community, we have to invest in that if we're going to grow. So there's $1.7 million in Antioch's roads and part of a countywide paving program. There's construction on Bell Road and Anderson Road. I've spent some time with TDOT, and I've made sure that it is a priority for the state to finally intervene in Bell Road in a big way and make that what it should be. We've, for a generation, been frustrated by not enough improvement in Bell Road. But TDOT, I mean the state, and I think our new caucus chair, Representative Clemens, is here. Thank you. Working with the state. That is a state road, a state project, but the city can sure encourage them to do that. There is $20 million of sidewalk projects in Southeast Nashville. Let me just call off some of the places. I mean, thank you. I mean, this is why I ran to be mayor, is to be able to read off this list, to change the prioritization to Nashville neighborhoods. So a bike, Haywood Lane to Tusculum Road, from Mountain View Roads to Shadowbrook Trail to Nolensville Pike, on Antioch Pike, Bell Road, Old Hickory Boulevard, all Shadowbrook Trail to Cane Ridge Elementary, to Rural Hill Road to Curtis Hollow Road, and then stormwater. So there's $20 million of sidewalk projects in Antioch. Why so much? Because there had been so few prior to these last years. Now, stormwater, $3 million in Antioch, stormwater repairs, a new water mains on Rural Hill Road, Woodlands, Powell Road, a new $3 million gallon per day water pumping station, and new Antioch, two $3 million gallon water tanks, and one 4.2 million gallon water tank. And then 64,000 feet of sewers in the Priest Lake Meadows area is being repaired right now. 58,000 feet of existing sewers in Castlegate area, and 43,400 feet of existing sewers in South Hurricane Creek. In total, this is a $58 million being invested in Antioch capital projects right now. Now, they're being done right now, so you have to go to the web viewer to see the progress that is being made. But this area of Nashville, our fastest growing, deserves this extra investment. And it goes beyond, I'm glad to say, the Hickory Hollow Mall. I think a direct intervention by the city was necessary to convert a dead mall that was not going anywhere into what it should be. The heart of Antioch, that what we call the Bridgestone building, is also being acquired by the city to turn that into a nonprofit hub with community-based activities that, as the council and we vision that out together, I think there are very few projects in the country that can compare to the vibrancy that that's going to bring to this new heart, this beating heart of Nashville. So thank you, Vice Mayor, for having me. Thank all of you for being here. I think this is so wonderful that we can share our message, share what's going on, share the work of each of these departments, and to learn from you what also is needed. The participatory budgeting process, I'm thrilled, I think needs to include all our communities. We're from the public themselves to hear what is needed right now, what should be the highest priority. We can't do everything at once, but we can get started in serving this community. But I'm very proud of the $100 million in schools in Antioch. I'm very proud of the $50 million of capital spending going on right now. I'm very proud of the public safety and fire and community investments that are being made. I'm very proud, I see Diana here from INDOT. I'm very proud that we finally have a Department of Transportation. Somebody focused with actual traffic plans. I mean, boy, traffic is terrible. What are our plans? You need a traffic planner to help you invest correctly to create a better environment. Now, we let this go on for too long, but with the help of the council members, I'm excited to say this is the focus of the work in Nashville. Schools first, infrastructure, fix our finances, get help out to people who are in growth communities. And why is schools first is because all the opportunity that's happening in the new city needs to get to our kids and our grandkids. And the way to do that is to have a great school system where they're all going to thank us for living in Nashville, and we're going to tell them about the traffic and the underinvestment and the progress that we made for sure. But let's get on with the next phase of doing that. So thank you all very much for having me. Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank all of you for attending, because it's only with the public participation, public engagement can anything really get done. And it's with your help and blessing and encouragement that stuff gets done and money is spent. And I want to see us all back here at the groundbreaking on the 9th Precinct on Murfreesboro Road in just a few months. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so remember comment cards. If you've got questions now, go ahead and write them out. Just hold them up. At some point, we'll come pick them up. If during the presentations you have comments or questions, write them down and we'll do it as well. We're going to let the departments get through their presentations, and then about 7:30 we'll stop sometime around then, and then we'll start answering questions. So first up is the planning department. Who's leading? Lisa Milligan, there she is. Lisa gets.
And I think I'm going to stand here. So
you're going to stand here, so
we have a short presentation.
So I'm going to take.
That's right.
This, I'm going to take all this out of the way.
Okay.
Oh, I needed to say one thing.
Sure.
We had 3 people volunteering that were getting credits. They're part of the school system. Actually, not our school system, the university school system. Armin Benny from Nashville State Community College, Jonathan Kamey from Motlow State, and Hope Shelton from Motlow State. They've been volunteering, so they get credit. So thank you. Okay? All yours. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John Houghton with Metro Planning, and also with me is Lisa Milligan. And what we wanted to do is just get everything started tonight with a brief overview of growth in the area, and then turn it over to the other departments. So this first slide, just to remind everybody, the area that we're looking at tonight is really from I-40, swinging all the way down to I-65. That entire quadrant of our county includes 12 districts. So as we go through the evening and talk about different issues and projects, we'll be talking about that entire swath. Some of the things that are highlighted on this map include community centers, greenways, parks, libraries, fire stations, police precincts, and public and private schools. So if we need to go back and reference this at any point, we're happy to do that. The first 2 slides just talk about population and population density throughout the county, just to give some perspective. The first slide is population density, and you can see this is the number of people per square mile. You can also translate that into households if you divide roughly by 2. But you can see the darker areas, the darker reds, are concentrated in this area along Murfreesboro Pike, I-24, and in sort of the Old Hickory Bell Road perimeter, or the east-west roads. Just to put some of this in context, between 2010 and 2020, Davidson County grew by 90,000 people approximately, about a 14% increase. In this wedge that we're calling Southeast area tonight, it grew by 36,000, or roughly 16%. So not that different from the entire county, but as we'll see here in a second, when you start to drill down into some of the individual districts, council member districts, you see some numbers really pop up. So this is population growth, as I was just mentioning, from 2010 to 2020. Again, the bright colors, the oranges and the reds, are where you see the greatest growth throughout the county. And I think, as we all understand, growth has been sort of washed across the county. We'll get into that more in a second with Lisa. But really, so then the question becomes, are the areas prepared to absorb that growth? If we can go to the next slide. So here's zooming in on the southeast area. You can see again the orange, bright orange, is where the fastest growth or greatest growth has occurred. So if you were to look at that, if you remember, I just said county-wide population growth over the last 10 years was 14%. In the southeast area, it was 16%. If you look at council member districts 31, 32, and 33, you start to get into the high 20s, almost 30% to almost 50% increases. So that's really sort of the story in this part of the county in terms of the increase in growth, population growth. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Milligan to talk about some of the planning cases and planning activity in the area.
Hi, I'm Lisa Milligan. I'm the land development manager for Metro Planning. John and I were late additions, and so our names aren't on your agenda. I'm Lisa, the land development manager, and I'm going to walk through just a little bit about applications that have been filed, planning applications in this area, what all those include, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about building permit data as well. And so the map in front of you, the area again that we're talking about tonight, the sort of wedge is the shaded pink in the background. And what you see here is planning cases, applications for the past 5 years, so representing 2017 to 2022. The different types of cases are noted by the dots on the map. And let me just sort of talk about the kinds of things that planning reviews. This could include everything from a community plan amendment all the way to a subdivision plat that's just shifting a lot line between 2 lots. And so it's sort of big things to also very small things. Now, every dot on this map does not represent an entitlement increase. A lot of the times when we think about planning cases, we're thinking about things like rezonings or preliminary SPs, but this is going to cover everything from a final site plan for an urban design overlay to a rezoning, to a subdivision. So this is everything. Now, these are applications filed. It does not necessarily represent applications approved. And so this is everything that was filed and that planning reviewed in this area over the past 5 years. I did want to talk just a little bit about rezonings because we sort of think about that when we think a lot about sort of increases in what people can do. Now, not all rezonings do increase what someone can do. Sometimes it's the opposite. So countywide, we had in the past 5 years, 627 approved rezonings. That does include things like overlays, such as the corridor design overlay or contextual overlays. And so a lot of times those are more protective measures. And so those are placed on top and don't necessarily change what can or can't not be done with property. So that was around 7,200 acres altogether for rezonings. For these districts that we were looking at tonight, there were around 93 rezoning cases for around 1,500 acres. Now, one of the cases, when I was pulling this data together, sort of struck my attention. One of those was a R, which is 1 and 2 family rezoning, to RS, which is single family down zoning that covered 412 acres. And so I just wanted to point out sort of a third of the acreage that was represented by rezonings in this wedge of the county was a down zoning. So essentially it reduced what could be done on the property. So the next map is a map that's going to show you a representation of building permits from 2017 to 2022, and these are for new construction. This would not necessarily include things like additions or to an existing home. And so the red dots are going to be commercial. You're going to see that those are mostly along the corridors that John talked about. And so you can see those sort of linear along the corridors. And then the purple are residential permits. And so that would be things like new single family homes. And so you can sort of see, if you look outside of the pink area, we wanted to include some of those adjacent areas so you could see the activity that was also happening in those areas. And I think that's it for planning. And I told Vice Mayor that I would introduce the next person. So I'm now going to be your host for a moment. And I'm going to introduce the South Precinct Commander, Keith Stevens from the Metro Police Department.
Well, good evening, everyone. Like she mentioned, I'm Commander Keith Stevens of the South Precinct. I've had the pleasure of meeting a good part of you in here. I think 10 of my 11 council members are here. So I sincerely appreciate the partnership that we've had over the past 3 years. Tonight is somewhat bittersweet for me, as this will be my last community meeting in South, as I'll be moving on as a deputy chief. So I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce the new precinct commander of South. Kevin, if you'll stand up. This is Commander Kevin Lovell. He'll be taking over South. Thank you. He'll be taking over South effective Thursday morning, so I'm going to try to give him a crash course into all the exciting things that we've had go on. But he grew up in South Nashville. He went to Glencliff High School. He's currently over the domestic violence division, which he has a passion for the victims there. So he is a really good asset that's going to be here in South. So I know there's going to be a question and answer session later, so I anticipate some questions. But regarding the new precinct, which Council Lady Vercher has worked so hard on, and we've been working on the building plan over the past year. Like the mayor said, it is set to ground break in spring of 2023, which is very exciting. And then our anticipated opening would be probably July of 24. It can't get here soon enough for the South Precinct. And when I talk about the growth that we've had at South, we are 69 square miles with approximately 150 to 160,000 people living in those 69 square miles, which all of you see driving on Murfreesboro Road, on I-24, the increased traffic, the increased road rage situations that we deal with daily. There's so much I could talk about that, and I'm sure hopefully I'll get into it a little bit later, but it's going to take all of us working together. We have certain challenges in the South. We have over 100 apartment complexes. And when you think about an apartment complex, multifamily, we're a melting pot. We have so many people from all over the world living right here in Nashville, which makes us a tremendous community to live in, but can also be difficult when you're trying to police. A couple of things that I really wanted to highlight from our recruitment section. Chief Drake has made recruitment of new police officers a priority. The council has staffing new officers, as we have to get police to join our agency. We're actively recruiting from all over the country. We're now doing lateral classes, so we'll take officers from the NYPD, from LAPD, from wherever they want. They want to come to Nashville, we'll hire them. Just this year, as the mayor mentioned, we've had 6 training classes start at the police academy. Of those 6, one thing that I'm extremely proud of, make sure I get my numbers right on this. 44% of those hired were either female or minority. 44%. That's something that we are aggressively trying to do because we have to mirror our community. I mean, let's face it, we have to do that. We need more females in law enforcement. I think the national average is around 12%. Our goal is 30 for 30. The chief has signed a pledge that we want to hire 30% of females by the year 2030. We're aggressively trying to meet those goals. Growing up in a law enforcement family myself, seeing my mom and my dad and later on my twin brother and I joining this police department, but to watch your mom get up, really, she worked midnight shift when I was a little kid, put on a gun belt and go work the midnight shift. I mean, we need females in law enforcement. We need good people in law enforcement. So a little recruitment plug, we are hiring. We are hiring. The council's working on pay for us. So I'll sit down now and look forward to answering any questions you may have for us later. So thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Commander. Again, if you have questions about this, write them down. I mean, one of the questions I have is obviously while we're waiting for the new police precinct, how are we covering this whole area? Which area are we covering it out of, and the response times? So anyway, I just asked you a question. I'll come back and ask you in a minute. Okay, the next group up is the fire department. I think Commander Smith is here, and maybe Chief Tony are here. Okay, so come on up. Same type of question. One of the things that we're trying to do is figure out, particularly with the map up here, is where are the fire departments? Is there any future expansion planned? And how do we deal with an area that's growing so quickly? Okay, I just gave you all the information you need. All right.
Well, the spotlight just happened to come over here now, thanks.
That's right.
So, thank you guys for coming. It's really important that we meet. This is my first time addressing a crowd like this, on topics like this, but I think they're critically important to the community. And as my brother on the police department said, we're hiring too, the fire department. So if you know people, please send them our way. Growth is inevitable in our division. We need to expand our divisions. I realize that it's a priority for us. We're fortunate to have a council and a mayor's office that's working really hard with us. Chief Swan has taken a direct position, that's our director chief, to try to empower us to try to figure out different ways to expand our ranks. But as we've already heard, our community is growing and it's growing fast. And sometimes it's making it more and more difficult for us to even try to compete, much less outpace that growth with new hires. We're looking at expanding. We always do. Chief Swan is always negotiating ideas and plans to put new facilities, new fire halls. The problem is we're having a difficult time hiring people. That's a fact. In EMS, which is I'm the chief over EMS operations, we hire people with an education. Right out of school, they have to be trained to the advanced EMT level or paramedic. So every one of the ambulances that responds to your homes have a advanced life support trained paramedic on board. And that means a whole lot. But it also means on the front end a lot too. So we're looking at different avenues on how we can recruit by going out of state, talking to our universities and our trade schools. What are we doing to build that number so that we can have fresh new hires and a continuous flow? As people retire, we need to be able to fill those numbers. And over this past year, I am so happy to say we're growing, or at least we're trying to keep a standard level and maintain a number. So maybe growing isn't the right word, but we've had 4 new recruit classes this year. Equity, diversity is very important to us, so we're always searching for that too. What's next? I don't know. The universities, like I've told you, we're maybe talking to high school kids and getting started in those programs so that we can start to nurture and build that program towards that future. Blame everything on COVID if we want to. We had a difficult time with that. Personnel took a big hit, but we didn't lose ambulances. We didn't lose responses. We stayed the course and we somehow made it through. But you're suffering with the ability to get parts and vehicles, and that's what we're suffering with too right now, just trying to get automobiles and ambulances and fire trucks. I won't speak for Chief Tony, but it's a difficult path to try to hoe when we can't get the equipment that we need. But keep in mind, and I want you to be assured, we've got the units out there ready to respond to your homes. Right now, well, as of last month, we had 28 full-time advanced life support ambulances on the streets. This month, we added 2 more, and next month, we'll put another one in full-time to a total of 31 new ambulances. And then in the following fiscal year, we hope to add 2 more for a total of 33. So we're working real hard to try to make sure that your needs are met. We recognize them, and I welcome any questions if you have them here in a minute, but thank you.
Y'all better make sure my hand clap is a little stronger than his. So I'm Commander Tony with the Nashville Fire Department, and we recognize that while the circumference of Davidson County hasn't changed to 541 square miles, the density has. And the fire department is in a continuous effort to meet that density change. So currently we're at 825 firemen on the streets. We've got approximately 44 in the academy now, and we're looking to hire approximately up to 30 in the spring. So we have a continued effort to go on with trying to increase our staffing to meet the needs of Nashville-Davidson County. And as far as, I know we're talking about the quadrants and adding new fire halls. In the future, our near future, what we're trying to do is increase that by adding new fire halls to each quadrant, and also sub-staffing some additional fire halls that are existing that aren't being used. What we're under direction of Chief Swan, it's been a continued effort to try to meet the needs of Davidson County. And like with our hiring, we've had continuous classes for the last 5 years. Our diversity numbers have increased, and you'll see we also have a Blaze mentoring program, and Antioch falls into that guideline. So our Blaze mentoring program goes to all 12 core high schools to try to educate the youth about a potential career in EMS or fire or within Metro Nashville-Davidson County, because there's a lot of opportunity that our city offers that people don't know or have access to. And we try to increase that knowledge by going to these schools every month. The Nashville Fire Department has also, under the guidance of this administration and the mayor's office, they have done an outstanding job on increasing public safety. So you guys should really be proud of the administration you have in place, because this has been a continued effort of theirs to make sure that your needs that you have are met. Thank you. I need that a little bit louder.
It's going to become a contest. Okay, so next up is Hank Clay, who's the Chief of Staff for the Metro Nashville Public Schools, and same type of thing. Hank and I actually saw each other today, and again, the question is, depending on the nature of the growth and all these kids that may be moving here, kind of what does it look like in terms of the schools and future expansion of schools? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you all for coming out. First, I'd like to recognize our school board member, Cheryl Mays. Ms. Mays, if you wouldn't mind standing up. Cheryl has, Ms. Mays has rejoined the school board after serving and representing this area very well, and she's continuing to advocate very strongly for you. So first, what are we proud of? What are we really trying to accomplish? We're trying to give your kids, our kids in Southeast Davidson County, the best possible public education system. This past year, the state of Tennessee named Metro Nashville Public Schools a level 5, the highest growth school district we can be. And there were 6 schools named in Southeast Davidson County as reward schools. And we're proud of that growth, and we expect a lot more. We're glad to be at Antioch High School and what's happening here. Cane Ridge High School was in the state playoffs for football. And I'd like to invite my friends from Metro Nashville Public Schools to stand up who are here representing the district. We have several here who are happy to provide more details. So first, if you're a Metro Schools parent, I would love for you to raise your hand and us to recognize you. Yes, thank y'all. So if you know the story of Southeast Davidson County, you know that it's a story of overcrowding. And we have worked very hard with our wonderful Metro Council to push for a lot of funding to be able to relieve some of that overcrowding. And what we've seen is new investments, first in deferred maintenance, where we have between 75 and 100 projects that are under process right now, and what we're going to do to make sure that your schools are up to date, they're functioning well, and that they're going to last well into the future. In addition to that, we have several new additions. We have at Cane Ridge High School, a new addition that's under construction right now. We have planning for Paragon Mills, Haywood, Lakeview, a new elementary school cluster in Cane Ridge, and we're excited for more and more partnership with the Metro Council. One good piece of news that I have to bring to you today is that because of these additions and some other factors that I'll talk about in a moment, the overcrowding has begun to alleviate in Southeast Davidson County in your schools. We only have a few schools that are over capacity. We have the State Charter Commission has approved several new charter schools in the area. That has also helped to deal with overcrowding, and we'll be glad to answer more of your questions in the future. Thank you.
Okay, I did notice that Councilmember Aaron Evans came in. Councilmember Evans from District 12 has come in. Next up is Metro Water Services, and I'm not sure, Mr. Potter, are you in charge of this? Scott Potter, who's the Director of Metro Water, is here, all right?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm also in charge of trash, so I'm going to lead with that. Hi, everybody. I'm in charge of trash. So the good news is that in February we had 6,000 complaints. In October we had 800. Now that's 800 too many, and I understand that. But we're working really hard to get that number down as low as we can. Y'all are very familiar with the problem we had with our contractor, Red River. Good news is that they're out of the picture, and we've got, yay! We've got 3 really good contractors on board, but on occasion, even contractors have difficulty. And I think the last couple of weeks, maybe y'all seen a little bit of an uptick in misses, but we're working on that. And I'm a Davidson County resident myself. I'm a customer of Metro Water Services, Waste Services Division, and it makes me mad when my trash is missed. So we work really hard to drive that number down. We're going to go into more detail if you'd like, but I did want to lead with that because Southeast Davidson County took a lot of hits in the last 2 years in trash pickup, and I wanted to assure you that we're working hard to make that better. Next, I want to talk about stormwater. We've invested a lot of work in stormwater in the last 20 years. The Stormwater Division came over for what was then Public Works in 2001. And since then, we've invested near $50 million in all the districts that are represented here. That's made a really good dent in correcting a lot of historic problems. One of the things that we faced in Davidson County is that in the past, there weren't any stormwater regulations in place until the 80s. And that means that the neighborhoods that were developed before then were able to develop without any kind of stormwater infrastructure being required. And that put us in a position as a city where we are catching up. Good news is I think we've made a lot of progress in that, but there's going to be a lot more work that's required, and Unfortunately, it's one of those things that every day something else needs to be fixed in addition to what's already broken. But we're working hard on that as well. On the water and sewer side, we're doing a lot of work to expand the capacity in the southeast corridor. About 6 or 7 years ago, we felt like we may have been a little bit behind. So we did some emergency work in the Bell Road area off I-24 and put a lot of capacity in the ground. And fortunately, development didn't overextend our ability to serve. To prevent that from becoming an issue into the future, we're providing more capacity in transmission lines all around the southeastern part of Davidson County. Along the lines of water quality in general, we're doing 2 very significant projects in the next 8 years that are going to transform our 2 water treatment plants into the state-of-the-art water production facilities. They're going to last up to 50 to 75 years. We're not going to be in a position in Nashville and Davidson County where we have to worry about the quality of our drinking water and the availability of it. So really excited about that. We're going to kick that off in January. And it'll be about a 6 to 7 year long project at both plants. The interesting thing is we're going to be operating those plants essentially while we're rebuilding them. And that'll be a challenge that we have to meet, but we're going to do so. On the sewer side, you may have heard of our Clean Water Nashville program, where we are rehabilitating sewer lines and installing new sewer mains and working to eliminate any kind of sewage discharge into the environment. We're under a federal consent decree to complete that work. We're on schedule, and I'm proud of the work that we've done. So that's a quick summary about what we're doing. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. We do have John Honeysucker here and Sharon Smith here from our Waste Services Division. And I do want to recognize them individually because trash has been a huge issue in southeastern Davidson County. And without Sharon and John's efforts in the last year, I don't think we've had nearly the success that we've had. So I wanted to recognize them. So thank you.
All right, next up is NDOT, which stands for Nashville Department of Transportation. Diana Alarcorn is the first one up.
Good evening. Oops, sorry. Good evening, everybody. Diana Alarcon. And we're just going to run through a few slides. I too want to make a pitch real quick. I'm hiring as well. So if anyone's interested, please come see me. And also, I handle litter. So I'm going to throw that out. So, and we've been making some really good strides on the litter side of the house. But I want to give you a quick update of where we are with projects within the Southeast region. So Brad, if with me is Brad Freeze and as well as Philip Jones. So I got folks here to help with any questions at the end. So this is a map real quick of some of the projects. This is really looking at our sidewalk projects. As you can see, what's identified in green are projects that have been completed, and what's identified in red are projects that are currently underway. So we have quite a bit of activity on the sidewalk side currently planned in your neighborhood. Next slide. So bikeways, we also have some bikeway projects planned for you. And again, the green identifies the completed ones, and the blue are the ones that are currently in design and set to be constructed, over the next year, I want to say 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half. Next slide. So traffic calming projects, this has been a very popular program for us. And then within the Southeast area, the green identifies projects that are currently done, and the blue are the ones that are currently underway. And I want to break that down a little bit more of what that actually means and relates to. So the next slide actually breaks it down. So we've done 3 cycles of the traffic calming program so far, summer 21, winter 21, and summer of 22. That's been 29 projects, and this is all what's been identified in the Southeast District, which is 52 streets. So we currently have 27 projects or traffic calming projects in progress, 3 of them that are in design phase, 9 that are currently in balloting, 15 that are pending installation, and 25 that have been completed. So we've been actually out there pretty active over the past year and a half with some traffic calming programs in the Southeast area community. So upcoming projects that we're moving forward with. This is capital and TIP projects. And so what TIP means are projects that have been identified through our regional partner at the GNRC, which is a funding mechanism, and as well as our partners at the Department of Transportation, Tennessee Department of Transportation. So as you can see here, and the green dots are capital and TIP projects that have been identified. And then projects lines is like, so that's maybe an intersection improvement, a signal improvement. And then the blue lines is actually representing like a roadway project that's tied through that big capital project. And then you have the purple, which is a polygon, which is just breaking down what's within that region. Next slide. So I wanted to break it, roads and, sorry. So this is actually some of those projects. So when we talked about those dots and the lines, these are the actual projects that went with it, just to give you a little bit more information. All right, so road, bridges, and culvert projects in the Southeast District. So I do have this on a separate page because I know this is really small, but we were trying to give a lot of information here. And so as you can see, it's broken down by the different colored dots. And again, the blues representing some major bridge and culvert projects. You have a green square that's recognizing future capital bridge projects. Green round is representing culvert projects, and that's helping with the stormwater. And then you have some, I think that's, I can't see the color, I apologize. But then the next big color, dark color is actually completed projects. So we've got quite a bit that we've done and then quite a bit that we're actually going to be moving forward with. And next slide. So this is paving projects we wanted to share with you. So we do have some paving projects that are currently planned for the Southeast community. That's kind of breaking each one of the projects down as well as the cost. And I think we have one more slide. And that is, I can't read that, Brad, I'm sorry. What's it say at the top? This is the bridge and culvert project. So that's what was up on the small boxes. That's what we wanted to break down in just a little bit more detail of the projects. Thank you very much. And this is the continuation of it. So we have quite a bit of projects that we actually are doing within the Southeast community. So with that, I'll end, and we'll be here for any questions to answer. And thank you for the opportunity to share some of the initiatives we have going within the Department of Transportation and multimodal infrastructure.
Make sure you turn these comment cards in. We've got lots of them. Jim Hester is here with Metro Parks. Mr. Hester, he's the Assistant Director for Environmental Education, Special Events, and Outdoor Recreation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm with Parks and Recreation, and we're hiring. I don't know if anybody had heard that. We're looking for maintenance folks, we're looking for planning people, and we're looking for maintenance, planning, and I think that's it for right now. But anyway, if anybody's looking for a job, we'd love to hire you. You know, I don't get to get up on these stages too often, but we've got a great crew of folks that are here that work for you in Metro. But sitting next to Scott Potter, I just had to take a moment and say, this guy was one of the heroes, or a lot of heroes in 2010 in the flood, but he really helped the city get through the flood. And we are really lucky to have somebody as conscientious and smart and hardworking as Scott Potter to be there. So much so that we gave him trash too. So just a quick overview of some of the park stuff. Our master plan that was released a few years back did identify Southeast as an area that we needed more services. There were gaps in services. We have been working on that as funding becomes available. We're still very focused on trying to get some more things done. We have made some progress over the years. Southeast Community Center is one of the nicest community centers we have. Pitts Park Dog Park is a really nice dog park. A lot of people say it's their favorite dog park. You know, Orchard Bend, the athletic fields at Orchard Bend are really, really nice. We're very excited about Tusculum Road Park that's coming online soon. We're going through the public comment kind of period now. I will say there is a survey on the Nashville Parks website, and if people could go to the planning section, you can fill out a survey about what you'd like to see in the Tusculum area park, and that'd be great if people could go out and fill that up. And then the mayor had mentioned Mill Ridge Park. That's the big one, 600 acres. We're coming very close to getting done with phase 1. That'll be done sometime this winter. And speaking of shout outs, I can't say anything about Mill Ridge Park without talking about the Friends of Mill Ridge. It's one of the strongest friends groups we have in the park system. They're amazing, all the stuff that they do every day. We couldn't do it without them. I think that Daryl is here, and they do have some posters out in the lobby, and you can look and see like what phase 1 is going to look like. But we're real happy with, and a lot of people are real happy with Mill Ridge Park getting ready to open up. We've made some progress with the greenways, especially along the Mill Creek corridor. There's a lot of greenways going in. Once again, as funding becomes available, we're committed to going and growing those as much as we can. With that, I'll just take questions afterwards. For anybody that's got any questions, I'll try to do my best to answer.
Mr. Hester took my piece of paper. I think the last group up is the Department of Codes. Mr. Penn? Bill Penn, Head of Codes.
It's always a pleasure to be at any group that talks about the Codes Department. We don't have any charts or darts to show you, but I wanted to just kind of mention a few things that are going on within the department. One is the administration has worked very, very closely with us to provide us with the resources that we desperately need in order to provide the community with the services that they need in order to keep up with the growth that's occurring in Davidson County. So we're really excited about the coming new year. A lot of the positions are being filled, especially in the Property Standards Division. We have now an entirely new team that we've been able to create, and that's going to help us to reduce the size of the inspector territory so that we can be more proactive out here in the communities. And we've also been able to expand the size of our flex team, and they're the ones who are primarily tasked with providing audits of neighborhoods and special projects, and that may come up from time to time. So we're going to be able to expand that level of activity as well. We're very excited to serve this community and all of Davidson County. My inspectors, a lot of them are brand new, so we ask for some patience so that they can get their feet on the ground. They've basically come at a very good time because this is a slower period for us, but we know that spring is coming and high grass and weeds and all the other things that are associated with the livability of our neighborhoods are going to come to the fore, and we feel like we're much better able, thanks to the administration's support, to be able to provide those services and take care of those issues in a more proactive and efficient manner. So we'll be here. I'll be here for questions. I've got Will Dodd over there who's come with me to assist in any questions that you may have. And again, thank you for the opportunity and look forward to serving you.
Okay. I think that takes care of it. Are those microphones working in front of you? Okay. All right. Well, at least one of them is working. All right. Do this one first. All right. So we can always pass around the microphone if we need to. All right. So we finished early with the presentation, so we're going to try to get through as many of these questions as we can. All right, so I'm just going to read them and then figure out who should answer them. Okay, so the first one is, what are the plans for Holt Road at Nolensville? How many lanes will come out at Nolensville Road? And what is the time frame for that part of Nolensville Road widening? All right, so I don't know, Diana, this may be yours and you may not know off the top of your head, but that was the first question.
So we did submit a grant application with the U.S. Department of Transportation for what we're calling safe streets to look at improving the roadway network. The grant application is looking at making overall safety improvements based on the data we've collected of what's causing the deaths on the roadway. Unfortunately, Nolensville has been the street that has actually had the highest number of fatalities that have occurred. Over the past 5 years, when it comes to the most vulnerable users, which are pedestrian and bicycle modes. So as far as what that's going to look like and feel, I do not have an answer today. We are hoping, and I'm going to give Brad a chance to jump in here as well, in case I'm leaving something out. Our hope is we'll be successful with the grant and that we would then be doing a lot of community outreach to discuss about it. But I will tell you some of the safety improvements is looking at adding better pedestrian pathways, so crosswalks, how people move, signalization, and some protected bike lanes, whether that's going to be a reduction in the road diet or not. But again, we are working with TDOT because Nolensville is a TDOT road, so whatever we're doing will be in partnership with them. Do you have anything you want to add on top of that, Brad?
Yeah, I'll say.
Nope. Here, we'll
Well,
share the
maybe it is a little bit.
There you go.
Okay, there we
now
go.
You're on.
So, yeah, I'll share. So, as Diana said, we submitted a grant application for Safe Streets for All for Nolensville Road, Nolensville Pike, in partnership with TDOT and WeGo as well. So, it's really a if awarded, we're still going to move forward with projects on Nolensville Pike. Don't want it to appear that we're just waiting on the grant. That section is part of our Vision Zero implementation plan to address both in the short term with more what we call rapid build projects, but also in the long term, what we call transformative projects, which that really means more in terms of a complete streets project. And complete streets means we're not just catering to one mode of transportation on the corridor. We are really focused on how we handle, the bike and ped modes of travel on the corridor as well, integrating those in to make the most vulnerable road users more comfortable and more safe out there. So we are looking at, if awarded the grant, it will fund a two-phase process, a phase where we actually have identified more of what we call the rapid build, what I referenced earlier, where we're hitting different intersections, different mid-block crossings with safety projects. In addition, it'll fund development of 20% plans, design plans, all the way to through the preliminary engineering process for a transformative project, where we'll coordinate with TDOT to actually get that started and get that built.
Okay. All right. So remember, all the questions that we have up here, most people put on their email address. And so we're going to try to get all these things answered to everybody who signed in anyway. Okay, so having said at the beginning that all this is supposed to be kind of non-confrontational, I'll read this in a non-confrontational way. Okay. Please stop allowing developers to add quantity, which is rezoning for multifamily increased density, without adding quality to our community. Remember, you're clapping in a non-confrontational way, all right? We deserve high building standards. Developers need to make significant positive contributions to our community. Ms. Milligan, you want this one? And I don't know how you can, so obviously, or codes or anybody else, I think the question is, a lot of developers building a lot of stuff without adding quality to the community. Anybody want to take that one? Chief? Anyone? Your points are well made. Mr. Penn?
Well, I think what we're getting to is that a lot of the development that we may be seeing is not on a level that bespeaks of the livability of the neighborhood, and that we're looking at minimum type of, at least if I think I'm understanding the question, the comment correctly, a lot of this is some kind of minimum. It's either minimum or it's super high end, and so your average person is left out of the mix and the ability to even to get into something that's going to be very nice. So I think the development community needs to look at what they're providing and what is the level of ability of the community, individuals who are seeking new housing. What is it that they can afford, and how can we give them the same level of housing, if you will, that we are giving to our more high-end customers? At least that's what I'm seeing. I live in Old Hickory, and I moved into an old house, been renovated, it was nice, but I blinked and the whole community is changing, and high-end things are coming in around, and the folks, nobody like myself seems to be able to come in. There are more folks with the high end. So I'm thinking that may be a part of it. I may be totally off base on that, but that's my observation.
Sounded like a good answer. All right, so let me, because you're talking, you get the next question as well. We need codes to comment on enforcing code regulations along Antioch Pike. Business in regards to pollution, it looks like pollution in Mill Creek, reports that the creek, what is it? Something's going on with Mill Creek in terms of making sure that it's not being polluted. So, Mr. Penn, any comments on that one?
Sure. We are looking at that. We are working with the water folks on that. In fact, one of my contacts with water has been communicating with me on efforts. Some things were brought specifically to our attention, and we've looked at those to determine whether or not we have a problem. If so, what is the nature of the problem and the magnitude of it? Certainly, that is an area that needs some focus, and now with the additional resources that I have, we'll be able to pay a little bit more attention to that. But we're working cooperatively with water, and I have to give them a shout out. They've really been super to work with, because a lot of times they'll see things and bring that to our attention, and we'll see things and we'll bring that to their attention. So it's really kind of helped catch some problems in the early stages before they become major situations. But we are aware of those issues and we are working it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Potter.
I'd like to add a few things about Mill Creek. There's two specific points I want to make. Number one, we're going to need the neighborhood's help all along Mill Creek from the county line all the way downtown, because soon we're going to have to make a very major decision about how we're going to deal with the additional growth that's along that corridor and transporting the wastewater that's as a result of the development in the southeastern corridor. So we're going to be coming to the community relatively soon with one or two proposals, and I'll need some feedback on that. But we're going to make a major investment that's going to greatly enhance the water quality in Mill Creek. Second thing is, I'm going to need that applause when we talk about the proposals, because, like I said, they're going to be pretty significant and impactful proposals. The second thing is, we need your help. Whenever you see an illicit discharge of any form that would go into a water of the state, like Mill Creek, please call 862-4600 and let us know, because we have divisions within Metro Water Services in the Stormwater Division and in the Wastewater Division. That's their sole job, is to find and eliminate discharges into bodies of water that are causing harm. So please give us a call if you see anything like that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next question. This looks like it's for parks. Preserve more underdeveloped land as parks and greenways before it's gone. Mr. Hester, it's all you.
That was a statement, right?
That was a statement. I'm just asking for any opinions on it.
I think we agree with that. I mean, that's part of our mission, is to try and save open space and green space and preserve it for the public use for recreational purposes. As we get funding, we acquire it as often and as quickly as we can.
Okay. All right, next question from the same individual. More police to confront speeding and patrol the streets. Commander, I think that's yours.
Probably wants to answer this. So I will say, if you leave here without a job, that is your own fault with all of us hiring. It's true. It's true. Everybody's looking for a good job, but and we are hiring traffic officers if you're looking to do that. So I will say, in 3 years, one of the number one complaints that I receive pretty much on a daily, every other day, is neighborhood speeders. street racers, people driving up the streets too fast. It's a major issue for us. Vice Mayor asked about the staffing at the precincts. How do we staff? At South, we are by far the busiest precinct. I think that it's something that Chief Drake has recognized. We're allocated a certain number of officers. He's given me additional officers this year because he sees the need. An evening shift officer will come in at 3 p.m. There could be 50 calls in the queue. That people call in dispatch. You'll call dispatch, you may have to wait a little bit of time to get a dispatcher. That's a separate division than the police department, just know that. But once it goes into the queue, an officer has to go answer that call. So there may be 40, there may be 50 calls. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of time for unallocated time to actually stop the speeders. We try our best when we are driving from call to call, and I preach often, if you see an aggressive driver, stop them. Our families drive the same streets that yours do. It's a priority for us. We've centralized the traffic division. All the motors now work for the traffic division. So they have a daily plan that's set to go into neighborhoods and focus on speeders. So we are addressing those issues. As we gain more officers, which we are increasing that number, that will be a priority for our police department.
Okay. We got two questions here about vehicles parking in places, I guess, that they're not supposed to park. One is vehicles parking in bike lanes, and the other one seems to be just an increase of vehicle parking on the street, which impacts access to communities during emergencies. Y'all hearing anything about that? Either codes, NDOT, police?
So I'll take the one on bicycle lanes, and I probably can also take the one about parking in neighborhoods as well. And then please, fire, please jump in and help me out here. So it is illegal to be parking in a bike lane, and we would really appreciate it if people would not do it. If you do see someone parking in a bike lane, please report it to Hub Nashville. We get those messages right away, and we actually do send enforcement out and write tickets. So we are actively upping our enforcement to make sure that people are aware that they're not supposed to be parking in bike lanes. And we are really counting on the public to help us have those extra eyes out there so that we're keeping the bike lanes available for the bicycle users. On the other hand, in reference to parking in neighborhoods, I'm really going to work with the neighborhoods on that. Some folks look as parking on the streets as traffic calming. Others look at it as the inability to not allow for fire rescue to actually access the roadway. I will share with you, you should at all times maintain at least a 14-foot clearance. So I will say, if you are parking on both sides of the street and you do not have at least a 14-foot clearance, one side needs to give up parking. And that is so that you can make sure that your public safety vehicles get down the roadway. And that's pushing it. But we are in some dense areas and downtown areas, but 14 feet would be the minimum. If you are, let's just use example, if you have a 20-foot width roadway and that's 10 foot of a travel lane and you're putting cars, which are typically 6 foot wide, y'all do the math with me right now. That is right there is 12 feet. You're leaving 8 feet. A fire vehicle truck is not going to get down your road for fire rescue. So as a community, I'm more than happy to come in and throw up the signs that says no parking so everybody's aware of it. But I would ask for the community to work on which way y'all want to go, and then we'll be more than happy to assist just so that we provide the signage for information so that your safety vehicles can actually get down the roadway. Do y'all have anything you want to throw out?
I'll just say it's pretty common sense that as living in a neighborhood, being neighborly, don't block someone else's driveway. Don't block the mailbox. Don't block the fire hydrant. We can come out and cite if it's a public safety violation. If it's a safety violation, we can write a parking ticket. I know the codes department can come out, they can tow, but let's just be neighborly. If you see something, Hub Nashville has been a wonderful, wonderful tool to be able to report anything public safety related. Those come into our office daily. You could be anonymous if you don't want to report who you are, but we get those daily and we go out and address those. And we reply back and let them know it's been addressed. But we do write parking tickets. I know codes are working on their enforcement arm in their office. There is a traffic commission, a parking unit downtown that enforces traffic violations, but we do that daily.
Okay.
I'll just add, as a point of personal experience and just simple awareness, when the streets are congested, especially with two vehicles on both sides of the road that we're talking about, it's not, and there's an emergency, be it a house fire or a medical emergency, it's often not just one large piece of medical or fire equipment that comes to your home or to that area. It's multiple large apparatus who need access to get to it in a timely manner. And that's oftentimes the problems is one of our large vehicles gets in there to try to fight the fire or render medical assistance, the other pieces of apparatus can't get close. And so that's a plea from my personal experience to really consider where we're parking in those close, tight neighborhoods. And I realize there's no place to park. Those houses back in the 40s, 50s, 60s weren't built with 30-foot driveways and tons of access, but and we're growing. But the concern is real. We don't have an ability to get to you if the passageway is blocked.
Good. All right. I did want to recognize that Councilmember Freddie O'Connell has come in. There he is, right here. And Councilmember at Large Sharon Hurt, I believe, came in. There she is. All right. So thank you all for being here. All right, next question. This is for education. I'm a high school student. I attend Nashville School of the Arts. Are there any plans to build a new school? School was moved to its current location in 2003 with the hopes of getting a new building. Mr. Clay, you're on the spot.
Yeah, this is a very exciting project. We would love to build a new Nashville School of the Arts. There are interesting talks about the potential of it being downtown, co-located on the new East Bank development, but we do not yet have the capital funding. And so our high schooler who is here, you have a bunch of council members down here who would love to talk with you and would love for that to be a part of the capital spending plan. It is part of our capital improvement budget in year one. So we're very excited about it and supportive of it and hope that happens.
Okay. Next question is also for schools. Which schools are overcrowded, I assume, in this area? And by what percent? And then I guess the follow-up question would be, in terms of the new growth, are there plans at this point, or are you looking at possibilities of new schools in the area?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in the Antioch cluster, Mount View is a little over 100%. UNA is also a little over. And then we're sitting in Antioch High School, which is 102%, a little bit over. Cole Elementary, Cane Ridge Elementary, Eagle View Elementary, and Cane Ridge High School, which the addition is being added on to right now, are all over.
Okay. All right. And then the last part, new.
Last part, yes. So there are plans for, well, Cane Ridge High School, as we mentioned, the potential for a new Cane Ridge, an elementary school in the Cane Ridge area, and then the potential of a middle school. We're watching the capacity in our middle school to see if that's still necessary.
Okay. And just for people who may not know, and I'm not sure exactly how you all do this, how do you figure out, you're watching demographics, how do you figure out where a new school might be needed? So if this growth is just incredible out here, how are you watching it? How are you measuring it so people here in this area know what the possibilities are?
Yeah, as a citizen of Nashville, as a citizen of Nashville, you can be really proud that we work together collaboratively with everybody up here. We work with planning to think about what they have been approving for new development. We look at demographic trends. We look at new birth rates. We look at people moving into the community to get a projection out 5 years and further. And so we use that to see where the need is, monitor that growth, and then seek capital to be able to fund that project.
Okay. A question for the Parks Department. How will the Parks Department operating budget or capacity be increased to provide equitable services in Southeast Nashville?
All right, say that again.
Okay, so basically, how are you going to spend more money down here for the Parks Department? It says, how will the Parks Department operating budget be increased to provide equitable services in the Southeast Nashville region? Can we read it again?
No, I think I got it.
You're looking at me, but yeah. The question is to you, and then you can send it back my way.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So it is very much a focus of the Parks Department to provide equitable services, and we try to do that all the time, and we're thinking about it all the time and doing what we can. You know, it comes down to funding. I mean, as I said before, our master plan does indicate that Southeast is an area with service gaps. As we do get money to do things that we need to do, we do everything we can down here as the opportunities become available.
Okay. Okay, I did want to recognize that Karen Johnson is here. She's our Register of Deeds. She came in. Karen, raise your hand. There she is. All right, thank you. And going back to this idea of non-confrontational, okay? So I'm going to read this in a very respectful way. Planning. Planning needs to come out and drive around to see what and where they're being asked to approve to build. Example, shame on all who approved the school built on Mount View at the crossings. Waiting for the day when we'll be reading about a terrible car crash on Mount View involving parents and students. So what they're saying is it's not a good place for school. And then there was also the question about slide presentations being unreadable. We'll make sure that we send all the slides out to everybody so you don't have to worry about that. Any comment? That's just, again, I read it in a non-confrontational way. The concern about where it was located and maybe the infrastructure around it.
I may actually, not to divert, I may actually send that to
Of course you will.
schools.
Because send it to me.
No, actually, I don't believe that the planning department typically would be involved in approval of a school location. Those are primarily allowed within basically any zoning district that already exists. And so if there were questions about the safety of the roadway operations, I would probably pass it to Diana, or questions about locational choice, then to schools.
Mr. Vice Mayor, would you name the location of that school again?
It's Mount View School, right? And it's at the corner of, okay, it's Rocket Ship School, built on Mount View at the crossings, okay?
So not to get into a long explanation, but Rocket Ship is a public charter school that is independently operated, and we don't dictate to them where they can place it. They would decide that independently.
So, so from a safety perspective on the roadway, I would say thank you for letting us know. Brad's actually written it down. We'll actually come out and take a look at that and observe. And again, that's where we really ask for the community to let us know where the concerns or issues are so that we can actually look at how we can improve that safety and address some of these issues that y'all feel are happening.
The road needs to be widened, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. So thank y'all very much. I appreciate that. We were not aware that that was an issue until we heard it tonight.
And that's the benefit of these types of meetings. You get this
Yeah, thank you.
information. Significant amount of trash, litter, and mattresses and furniture being thrown and dumped on Smith Springs Parkway at Mountain View Road intersection. So we'll turn this one in as well, okay? The next one. I can't read. It's something, wait a minute. It is about invasive species becoming an integral part of park buildings. It looks like it's maybe over near Mill Creek. Any idea about that one? I can certainly turn this one into parks and y'all can take a look at it.
And somebody else may, stormwater or something, but with parks, yeah, invasive species are very much a problem. We are developing natural resource management plans now where we are trying to turn our attention more towards getting ahead of those problems. Once they get in, it's a really, really difficult thing to get it out. It costs a lot of money to get the stuff out of there, but it is a priority for us. and we are working on it.
Okay. All right, next question, Metro Nashville Police Department. What's the status of traffic enforcement in the Southeast region?
Okay, I think we kind of touched on that, Vice Mayor. It's a daily operation in South. Traffic units work in South daily. We have motor units that work in South. Our patrol officers also, between calls and their unallocated time, also address traffic problems. We do have an increase of crashes on 24. That's something that we've teamed up with the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Before I came to South, you never saw Tennessee Highway Patrol here, but the colonel has stated that he's going to add 50 troopers to Davidson County, and a good part of those will come to the southeast because they do know the amount of cars that are on the roadway. So they're going to give us a hand, and they help out tremendously. So we're addressing the traffic problem daily.
Okay. All right, next question. For planning, is there or could there be a specific objective process by which the planning department can ensure a thorough community input-based process before development proposals move too far? Okay.
Sure. So let me just speak a little bit to our processes. Of course, Nashville Next is the policy document that's the guiding document for any recommendations that are made by planning staff to the Planning Commission, from Planning Commission to Council. The Nashville Next was a very community-driven process that included extensive outreach and extensive involvement of the community to derive that plan for the area or for the county as a whole. It included setting policy areas for the entire county and identifying areas where growth was desired to be concentrated, such as along corridors and within centers. And so that is our sort of guiding document, which was heavily involved. It had heavy involvement from the planning, from the community, sorry. When new proposals come to the planning department, we typically, not always, but many times start out with a pre-application meeting. At those pre-application meetings, we will encourage the developers to reach out to the council members and to any community groups to have conversations with the community in regards to any sort of development proposals. The Planning Commission also encourages community involvement, and it's not uncommon for applications to be deferred oftentimes at the Planning Commission if they feel that there needs to be additional community involvement. A lot of the times with things such as rezonings or specific plans, those are ultimately legislative decisions, recommendations from staff to Planning Commission to Council, and then ultimately those decisions are council decisions as they're legislative. But I would say that from the community planning process, Nashville Next, any community plan amendments, those are largely community driven, and that we're always encouraging any developers that come in to have those contacts with the council member and the community for any processes moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So no, this is a follow-up question, and it's more about planning department when you get a proposal, consulting with other metro departments to understand the feasibility of the strain on resources. One of them is infrastructure in terms of like roads. How do you make sure that everything that, if a new development is coming, that you're looking at the different angles of what may be impacted?
Certainly, and we do, and so that so for Planning Commission applications, there is a sort of whole bucket of types of development that are happening under existing zoning. Things where maybe something has been zoned commercial for 25 plus years at times. And when those developments are happening, those are sort of outside of the purview of the review of planning. But even when those come in, they go through codes for building permit review, and then all of the metro agencies are involved in those reviews, and that includes NDOT, that includes Metro Water, Parks, everyone is involved in those reviews. The same thing happens when we get a planning commission or an application to the Planning Commission. When those applications come in, typically a couple of times a month, And we see anywhere from 40 to 70 applications at every submittal deadline, and those sometimes happen twice a month. All of those applications are distributed out to the various agencies. So we work very closely with Diana's team. We work very closely with Scott's team, Parks. Everyone is involved. We're making sure that if there is a greenway easement, that we're including that in the comments to the developers. We're making sure if there is a traffic study that is needed, that is being scoped down appropriately with Diana's team and completed, and that any necessary improvements are being tied to the development. And so we work very closely with our Metro colleagues to review all those projects.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to go through these questions as quickly as possible so we can get as many of them answered as we can. Somebody wrote a long message, and I'm picking one of the questions out. Okay, so there are regular traffic and safety issues along Murfreesboro Road, as in using turn lanes to drive. Anderson Road with no sidewalks or shoulders is a drag racing road. There are bus stops on that road, and people are walking along the side of the road. Do you know anything about this one, Diana? This is along Murfreesboro Road and Anderson Road.
Yeah, Murfreesboro Road, that section is part of our higher injury network that we've put together as part of our Vision Zero effort. So it is on our implementation plan to look at specific locations out there and do both the quick build solutions that I've talked about earlier, but also the longer term modifications that we want to work with the state on. We've actually had several meetings with TDOT talking about our Vision Zero implementation plan. They are very receptive in those conversations, and they've actually started their own. They've done what they call PSRIs, public safety roadway investigations on a lot of the pikes, a lot of the state routes in there. So we're working hand in hand with them on that. But we do expect to be addressing as many as we can as part of our Vision Zero implementation plan.
And I would just want to also add, we are working with our partners over at WeGo on how we can better coordinate and collaborate with the bus stops and pedestrian crossing so that people have access and not necessarily having to walk up to the intersection. So we are working on some of those aspects where there might be bus stops that are more mid-block driven. Those are some of the Quint bill.
As far as the enforcement part from the police department, if you have a specific intersection, time of day, you have a bus stop that you see is a safety issue, we could send extra patrols out to address that too. Just contact us there at South. We also have an app for our police department you can go to and report specific issues. We'd be happy to address that as well from the PD side.
Okay. There's a question about neighborhoods with speed bumps. How does a neighborhood go about? What has to occur for a neighborhood to get speed bumps?
Okay, so the traffic calming program that I shared on the slide earlier, and what we've done is we actually do 2 cycles every single year. The next one's being released. We're evaluating right now. I'm sorry, that's right. We already did that. We closed it, and we're now evaluating. So we'll be announcing very soon the next. We do 50 a year, 25 each cycle. So we actually announced the cycle for the summer, and now we'll be doing the winter. But when we open up for those when we open up the cycling sessions, we send that out both through emails and also work with the council members to help get the information out. You actually just submit an application to us, and then there is a criteria standards that we follow through when we're evaluating, and then we select the top 25. It's a very popular program. I wish I could do more, but we only have a certain amount of funding to support it. We have over 400 applications that are currently in the pile, and we get, I want to say the last round we had over 100 added. So we've cleaned, not cleaned, but we've actually managed to process a lot of those. We've changed the process. So in the past, we would require that you would go and get petitions signed by the community. We now do it through ballot so we can expedite it and get it done quicker so that we can move it forward and get more done. So we're really anxious to support the community on this. But when we open up the next application round, the best thing to do is actually submit an application. We'll put it through the review process and go from there. Did I miss something?
No, you can actually do a Google search for NDOT traffic calming, and it'll pull up the links to our website.
Thank you.
So you can get on there, and actually it walks you through how to submit an application, what the requirements are. I will say, with the enhancements that we've recently made to the program, we are deploying at a much quicker rate. I'll mention Philip Jones asked me the other day. Philip Jones is Assistant Director of our operations, what all the big semi trucks were and where he was going to put all the speed humps that we were actually being delivered in there. So we are ordering a lot of materials and pushing a lot out.
Okay. All right. The questions that are coming up that say, all the questions that were being asked, and some of the ones we may not be able to get are duplicative. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure we try to get all these things answered and send them out to everybody on the email list, okay? So everybody's questions will get at least recognized and answered, if not tonight. Mr. Potter, I'm going to ask you this one. What is the process of determining which new restaurants are being brought into the area?
I'm a big fan of seafood. I don't think we have an input to that decision, Vice Mayor.
You've got water and trash. Don't you want new restaurants?
You know, I'm not about that, thanks.
Okay, all right. All right. I'm not sure if we have the answer to that, but I know there seems to be not enough restaurants in this area. You would think the restaurants would show up where the people are, but they just haven't shown up yet, okay? For the fire department, where are new fire stations being planned and what is the timeline?
Right now, we're looking at all 4 quadrants of the corners of Nashville, and we've got a current Station 40 in Hermitage that we're going to start add additional personnel and equipment to, as well as add a new truck to the Hermitage area. So we're in the plan now, the 4 quadrants. Like I said, the density has changed so much that technically a fire hall may not logistically be far away from another one, but density-wise and call volume-wise, they may be closer. So we're in the planning stages of that now.
Okay. All right, next question. Again, non-confrontational. I continue to be disappointed at the lack of response to the pleas of the residents of South Nashville about our overdevelopment. The Property Standards Division, Planning Department, and Planning Commission need to be more careful in their decisions that so drastically affect our area. Can we expect a better response? I guess the answer would be we're always trying. Ms. Milligan, right?
I'm not sure. Can you
Mr.
clarify?
Penn?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
It's more, Property Standards Division, Planning Department, Planning Commission, concerned about the response to the pleas of the residents of this area about overdevelopment. So it's kind of a question about there's a lot of stuff happening, planning codes, there's just a tremendous amount of growth happening, and the response to some of the concerns that my guess would be that they're just growing too fast. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one there.
I'm just, it's probably more of a statement than a question, okay? What is going to happen to the Starwood Amphitheater? Anybody know? Anybody know? No?
I
Going to turn into the new Metro Council chamber. Okay. No more buildings, okay. Opportunity to change the Nashville Next plan. Is there going to be another opportunity?
Sure. So I can speak to this, and then we have John here from our long-range planning team too, if he wants to give more detail, nuance and detail to this. So the Nashville Next plan is sort of always evolving, and there are updates that we do periodically. Recently, we had a request that originated at the council level where council members requested that we look at some very specific areas in regards to the land use policy, which is established by Nashville Next. And so when we got that request, we sort of put out the call and said, hey, council members, tell us if there are areas that you're wanting us to sort of address where you think that maybe the land use policy needs to be updated or changed in some way. And so we've got sort of a list that we're working through right now of those specific requests that came in from the council members that would potentially lead to updates to Nashville Next. And so we're working through that now at the request of the council members. A community plan, something like Nashville Next, is something that is constantly evolving and needs to be updated after amount of time. Anita, did you want to add something? I'm sorry. Anita McCaig is here, which I many of you know Anita, and she's on our long range planning team. I don't know, Anita, do you want to? What? I don't know if that one's on yet. Vice Mayor, is it on? Okay.
Just hit it real hard.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're always working on Nashville Next. So if you have questions about your land use policy and feel that it does need update, just reach out to us. I'm easy to find, Anita McKegg. I'm all over the planning's website, but also you can grab me tonight over there. We do try to be as proactive as we can, although a lot of people do think, it's reactive with all the development and building going on. I live in this area, so, I experience the parking lot of I-24 Murfreesboro Pike, on a daily basis. So I hear you. And so just reach out for more information.
Okay. So we have a beautification commissioner here for District 33. It's Mr. Harrell, is that right? There he is. So, Harrell, sorry. Welcome. Okay. Thank you for being here. Okay. See, some people like the beautification commissioners.
I do. I do.
All right. So here's another question. I don't think it's a question. Buildings, schools, apartments, neighborhoods have been developed with lack of codes, safety hazards. Any indication, Mr. Penn, on that one? Again, concerns about, I guess, being built very quickly with a lack of codes.
Well, the building division is working, just gangbusters trying to make sure that anything that gets built is built according to plan and is safe. And we make the inspections as quickly as possible. We know that, the developers or the builders are on a time crunch because they've got to get that project done. So, but we don't cut corners. We try to make sure that everything is correct. If it is not, we fail those inspections and require that they get a reinspection. We do have an issue with folks sort of building without permits, and we catch them quite often. And I'm very intolerant of that. So when my guys catch them, they have 24 hours to come in and get the permit. If they don't, I triple fee that permit, and we post a stop work order and keep them from continuing forward until they get that done. So we're trying to stay on top of that. For the most part, everybody does what they're supposed to do. It's a sort of a staff thing and making sure that we can get out there in a timely manner.
So let me ask you a question, and you may hate me for asking this, but if somebody does see something like that, if somebody suspects somebody's building without a permit, or if somebody thinks that somebody's violating basic codes, what are they supposed to do? Is it the Nashville hub, or should they call in? Is there a number with codes to call in to complain?
They can call our main office anytime, and it's the 6590 number, 862-6590, but the hub is just as effective.
Okay.
If they'll turn it into the hub, it gets within 24 hours, unless it comes in on the weekend, on a Friday. We usually get it the next day, get it in the system, and get an inspector out. And if it looks like it's new construction or building without a permit, then we try to get that immediately to the building division so that they can effort that.
Okay. So this...
Vice Mayor, if
Yeah.
I could add, if the community sees that happening within the right of way, we would ask too that they, if they feel like work's being done without a proper permit or inappropriately within the city's right of way, that they also report that to Hub Nashville so we can actually investigate it as well.
Okay. So part of this, it always sounds like is, I mean, I know council members are turning stuff in, but if you all see something that needs to be reported, then use Nashville Hub or make a phone call. But Nashville Hub is just a good way to get it in as
Absolutely.
well. So there's a question, Mr. Penn, again, this is about the rental of single-family homes and the concern that multifamilies are living in a single-family home. Again, if that's happening, what should people do? Should they call? Should they get on Nashville Hub and turn it in? Should they call? What's the best way to do it?
Well, again, the hub is a good way to turn that in. The challenge with overcrowding is getting access and verifying that there is an overcrowding situation. So I ask folks to be patient and bear with us because it can be time consuming to effort those types of requests. Because if we go to the property and ask for access and they refuse, there's very little that we can do because we can't force our way in because we haven't seen the violation. All we have is something that someone has seen perhaps or believes may be the case. But if we abate and nothing happens, we can't go to environmental court unless we lay eyes on the violation. Otherwise, there's, well, actually, Metro Legal is not even going to allow prosecution of any court case that we haven't laid eyes on, physically laid eyes on, or unless a neighbor is willing to come to court to testify that, yes, I know that there are 5 folks in this dwelling unit, and I have whatever proof they may have to substantiate that. In that case, yes, we can go forward. But if it's just relying on the codes department, we do have to have the ability to verify it.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't necessarily want to turn in their neighbor or somebody down the street, can they turn it in through Nashville Hub anonymously?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So part of this is people's responsibility. If they see something, go ahead and send it in. Okay.
Please
and then
turn
you
it
all
in.
have to go look at it. Okay. Got it. All right. Again, non-confrontational. When are we getting our police precinct that has been slated for the old Kmart property since 2017? Specific groundbreaking date, it sounds like it's in the spring of 2023.
Yes, sir.
But there's a follow-up, and that is sort of the question I had for you before. Concerned about safety, how is this being handled right now as we wait for the groundbreaking of the new police precinct and the actual construction? I guess in terms of response time and everything else, how's that being handled?
Yeah, so right now, just simply put, if we have 400 patrol officers across Davidson County, we have 8 precincts. So those 400 are split between 8 precincts. There's an algorithm that goes in that strategic development tells us South is allocated, say, 100 police officers. Okay? Now, everyone in this room, because you're very smart, could tell me we probably need a lot more than 100 police officers. I'll agree. But Madison has to have police officers. West Nashville has to have police officers. So what we do is if we have more calls in the queue than, say, Midtown and Hermitage, they send officers to us. So we can cross borders. We do help one another, but it's all hands on deck with answering calls. When we do get caught up, we're able to do the proactive work that you're asking us to do. One simple thing while I have the mic, I've looked over the entire room. There's not one person in here that I looked at that thought, you know what, you're not smart. But can I just ask you to do one favor for us as the police department? Do you know we've had over 1,271 guns stolen out of cars since January 1st? 1,271 guns. I'm sure nobody in here has had a gun stolen. Okay? Let's talk about cars being stolen. Okay? We can be dumb victims at times. If you go into the market, it's a little cold, you leave the car running, you leave the keys in it. 50% of the cars stolen in Nashville are stolen with the keys in the car. People laugh. It's happening every day. You can personally cut crime in Nashville by 50% by locking your doors, taking your keys and your key fobs for the love of your children, your babies, your families. Do not leave a gun in the car. These guns, so right now what's happening in neighborhoods, we've seen it happen over the last uptick of the last 3 years. People will come into a neighborhood, park a car, 3 or 4 people get out. They'll break into 20 cars within 10 minutes. So we ask if you have Ring doorbells, if you have whatever doorbell system, whatever video you have, share that with the police department. You can be the person that solves that crime. We need that. But just lock your valuables, lock your car, Be smart. We've had babies stolen out of the cars, with the car driving down and you left your baby in the back seat not to wake them. Please share that with your neighbors. If you're a homeowners association, share it with your group. I know there's a lot of groups here. We have all our council members here, which, speaking of y'all, you're doing tremendous. It's normally you on the hot seat, not us, but share that with your people. We need your help. You could help solve 50% of crime by doing that. Please. Can I please get an amen on that one? Amen. Thank you. Thank you. So, Vice Mayor, crime will drop after this meeting.
All right.
Guaranteed.
All right. There's a Miss Tovar here. Where's Miss Tovar? There she is, way in the back. Okay. You need to meet.
Don't meet? Oh, great.
Ms. Tovar is going to help you recruit new police officers, right? So you all need to get together.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah, she only mentioned the police. I can
I'll
only
get
do
with
one
you.
at a time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so somebody, my neighborhood has I think it says a flock camera. Can't tell. I think the question is, and there's a couple of questions in here about cameras in neighborhoods. And what are you all doing? I know that we have passed a license plate reader bill. What is going on with neighborhood cameras? Are we seeing more of them? And more neighborhoods I know are interested in, I think some neighborhood groups are just going ahead and getting them. But is there some connection if they want to tie into the police department?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
So we have South invested in simple thumb drives for every single patrol officer. When we come to your house, if you've had a car broken into, if you've had a home burglary and you have video from your flock or from your camera system, we can download that video. We take it back to the precinct, we upload it, and we share that with our detectives. We're solving crimes daily that way. The flock system allows, I know there's people here that have flock. They have license plate readers in their neighborhoods. We just had a homicide in Nashville just yesterday. The victim, someone at the scene got a partial tag number. We're able to plug that into a license plate reader system. We located that car within 2 hours. 2 homicide suspects, which were teenagers, were arrested within hours because of simple technology. We all 4 license plate readers. I know the council has done a tremendous job with that. I know there's certain restrictions that we're working through, but I can tell you, it's a force multiplier to make our community safe. It's a force multiplier. You can hear people that talk against it. Just do your own research. See the benefit of what it really does. If a stolen car is being driven around your neighborhood, it alerts the police. If someone with warrants is driving a car, it alerts the police. Why would we not want to get those people off the street? So, yeah, yes, ma'am.
So we have an MOU for the flock camera.
Okay, the MOU, I think we may have to work with the council, I believe. I know we've talked about that, Melissa, for a Metro Legal, okay. And they're not here, but our police department is definitely a supporter, so.
We get stolen cars to our neighborhood, the camera will catch the plates.
Correct. And then once the council, once we get through and start using the license plate readers, hopefully soon, we can also use other license plate readers throughout Davidson County to tie into the same system for the information that we need. That's an opportunity we can do. So we'll look into that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Another question for the police department. How does Antioch compare to other areas in terms of gun violence?
How's Antioch?
Antioch, the Antioch area.
Great question. So I mentioned we have about 150,000 people that live in South Precinct. We average about 105 UCR crimes a week. When you think about the numbers that live here, we are a safe community overall. Because you think 105, that counts shoplifting, that counts theft from motor vehicles, somebody breaking into a car. So you really think about the numbers, we're very safe. We average probably 25 violent crimes a week. Some of that could be shootings, road rage situations since COVID. They've increased a ton because people are driving 100 miles per hour on the roadways. I will tell you this, please do not throw any signs up, do not wave, do not honk your horn. You have to be safe when you're driving in a car. But right now, so many people do have guns in the car. So just go ahead and expect someone to have a gun. So if you get into a hostile situation, report it to the police immediately. Don't encounter the subject. Try to avoid. But there are situations that way. If you witness a situation like that, call the police, call 911, and we'll have officers en route. But there are going to be situations that are dangerous. If you are a responsible gun owner, just be safe in what you do. And just remember, you're accountable for everything that you do with that firearm.
Okay. Someone has mentioned having a police recognition event at least once a year with music, social gatherings, and finger foods. Okay? So don't go anywhere quite yet.
I vote yes.
Okay.
Well, I like to eat, so let's do that.
Okay, so I'm going to give you this. It's got her name.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I like to eat too.
Oh, okay.
NDOT's invited too. Okay, so this next group, I'm going to go through fairly quickly. These are things either for codes or for NDOT, the requests for sidewalks, for road improvements, which I think would probably be better if I just gave you some of these things. But I'm going to see if there's anything in particular that stands out. This is one on every morning, afternoon at Old Hickory Boulevard and Bell Road. As parents pick up or drop off students, the road is blocked and the intersection is congested to the point of being a hazard. You have any idea about that one, Old Hickory Boulevard and Bell Road?
Well, I will tell you, as the mayor had mentioned when he did his welcoming speech, he had shared that he has been working and has had us working with TDOT about looking at the expansion of Bell Road. And that's one of the areas that we are looking at, improving the overall infrastructure, understanding that as the growth is happening out here in the Southeast community, that is a road that is heavily impacted. So we are looking at that, but I know Brad just wrote it down, so we'll continue to dive into that. If you do need roadway improvements, signage, or you would like a sidewalk, the best way to let us know about it is either go through your council member or please feel free to put it into Hub Nashville. Hub Nashville creates a work order for us and we act on every single one of them. So it's a little bit harder to go get a sidewalk built, but if it's a matter of us going out and doing some improvement to the striping or throwing a sign up that got knocked down, those are things we like to expedite pretty quickly so that we can actually keep the roadway as safe as possible.
Okay.
Parents sometimes block just the way that the road is set up. There's only one entrance in and out.
Do you know what school that is?
It's a K through 6. I don't know. It's a charter school. It used to be one of those for national
Thank you. Well, actually, we've been working with a lot of the different schools about perhaps maybe a different routing program of the drop-off and pickup so that it's not having as much of an impact or fallout on the regular roadway. So we'll follow back up with that. So thank you.
I'd like
Yeah.
to add one other thing. So we are going to be taking a more proactive role in how we manage our signal infrastructure. We were awarded a grant last year, $3 million from the federal government to deploy our traffic management center. And it also includes staffing, support for staffing as well. So we're going to have, butts in the seats monitoring our signal system, our entire signal system, looking for those congested locations, seeing how we can actually be more proactive in how we time and plan. And we're also looking at what we call adaptive traffic signal control systems, where they learn and use kind of artificial intelligence. They learn and actually adjust to create better traffic plans and timing plans. So expect a more aggressive approach from NDOT in the next couple of years as we look to maximize the capacity that we do have on the road.
Okay. Let's see. So a lot of the questions I just picked up were about codes and sidewalks. So I'm not going to ask you, these are requests for sidewalks. So just say you're going to take care of them all.
I would love to do that.
Okay.
Council members, please fund.
All right, here's a statement. Interesting. Metro must or should require traffic calming by design in developments and new developments. We should never allow the creation of roadways that can become drag strips. Could Metro planning require this as a requirement?
Yes, and we have in developments, and that's something that certainly Brad's team and I and my team have been looking at and working on and making recommendations to do so with developments.
So I will also share that there is going to be legislation coming before council for traffic calming to happen in 2 additional ways. So we have the current traffic calming program, but there is going to be a legislation coming back before council for consideration of the ability for someone to privately fund it and get it done. So that's one part of the legislation. And then the other second part of the legislation is also kind of making sure that private development is looking at adding traffic calming as part of their overall development plan. So there wasn't some legislation that went through, but it didn't get all the way through. It's been redrafted and it's being resubmitted and going back through. So we do anticipate that there'll be some legislation that will support that moving forward, that it will not be conversation, it'll be more of a requirement of the developers as they move forward. And then there'll be opportunities to privately fund it if you do not want to wait to go through our traffic calming program.
Okay.
I want to add one other thing. So we're also working with planning. We require traffic impact studies for these developments, and we are now working on upgrading our guidelines for our traffic impact studies to be more consistent and actually more aggressive in how we look at those and get those from developers.
And to add on to what Brad said, it's really a focus to on, they're called traffic impact studies, but it's really a focus on looking at mobility, not just vehicular traffic. And so it's looking at rethinking how we are addressing all modes of transportation in those studies.
Okay. Another one for, I guess it's for codes. Is there a way to clean up the area located on Bell Road before Anderson Road? The businesses have a rundown look with trash in the parking lot. Any ideas? Mr. Penn?
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. We get some addresses as to specific properties, then we can go out and take a look at that. And we've done a lot of work along that area, back and off and on. So it's an area that continues to need attention. And so if they could provide us with some specific addresses, we'd be happy to check that out.
Okay. All right. All these things, the ones I'm looking through now, I think are, again, requests for activity. So we'll hand them out at some point. We'll get them to you all. Okay. There was a question about new subdivision developments getting streetlights. If there's a new subdivision and it would comply with streetlights, who would they need to get in touch with to make sure that happens?
So it would depend on if you are within the general service district or the urban services district. So the urban services district, streetlights would be required. General services district, I don't believe that they are required.
No, but it would be something that we would hope and encourage the developer. So when you talked earlier about livable communities and more livable communities, we do feel like streetlights are something that creates a much more safe and livable community. So it really is on the developer's shoulders. So that might be something as a community that y'all could ask for when you're talking to a developer that you'd like to see streetlights built into it. But I think, as Liz had pointed out, if it's within the urban, they're required, but it's not so much a requirement in the general service area. But we like streetlights. We like pedestrian lighting a lot.
Okay. More lights, the better. The next group is schools. And Hank, a lot of the questions seem to be focused on charter schools in the area. So, and I don't know, there seems to be, let's see, Rocket Ship School, I guess there's one here. Somebody approved that. Rocket Ship, concerns about were permits required and inspections done to the building prior to that school opening. We have so many new charter schools in our area. What are we doing to support the growth, support, and encouragement of our public schools? I don't know, because I don't know how many charter schools are in the area. Here's another one. Number of schools in Southeast, including charter schools, what's being considered to address the increase in traffic and so forth around the schools. What can you tell people about what's going on with the charter schools in terms of this area and obviously some concerns about the building itself?
So public charter schools are public schools, and so we're all on the same page. The way that the governance structure works is that they, like a nonprofit, have their own separate board that decide the day-to-day operation of the school. When they want to operate in a community, they first apply to the local school board, which Ms. Mays is a member of, as well as 8 of her colleagues. And the application has gone through a review process, and it's evaluated based on what's in the content of the application. The school board then votes to decide to approve that school or not to approve the school. There is a chance for the charter school to revise the application. If the local school board approves the school, then it goes in operation. What has happened more often lately is the local school board has not approved the charter school to operate, in which case state law says that the charter school has the ability to appeal that decision to the state, to what is now a state charter commission. And so the state charter commission has the ability to review that application and then make a decision from the state level of what will happen in the local community. And so some of that is beyond the local school district's control. Regardless of who decides whether a charter school is approved or not, then that charter school has a lot of autonomy and is not under the direct supervision like a traditional district-run school would be to be able to articulate those things. So that is why the vice mayor is delicately dancing around that. We don't have a lot of direct control as a school district on that particular issue.
I've been vice mayor for 4 years. I know how to dance. All right. Councilmember Lee. Yeah.
Issues with the procedure of how charter schools came in, how many charter schools, anything around charter schools, if you heard them say the state did that. If you have some particular problem about the way that the board is that okays the charter schools to go against what the district says and does it anyway, you all also have your state representatives and your state senators. Reach out to them about things as well. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I didn't see you dancing. That was good. I'm going to ask this one just because it came in. Has anyone present on stage heard about the Urban Bird Treaty? Urban Bird Treaty. Mr. Hester, what is it? It turn lights off and all the birds come this way? What happened?
An Urban Bird Treaty is basically an agreement that the city undertakes in partnership with private and public sector to basically enhance the environment for birds and protect birds. And it has to do with how things are built, it has to do with tree canopy, it has to do with some very specific things in the city. And they're in the process right now of drafting that and working through it. It's led by the Nature Conservancy, and there's about 4 groups that are working on it. But our bird center at Warner Park is involved with it as well. But it's basically an understanding that we're going to do what we can do to make a hospitable environment for birds.
Thank you for explaining that. Okay. All right. Another, these may be the last questions for schools. In terms of the use of data, there's a question about some of the data appears to be a couple years old. And the concern about using that data and then trying to figure out in terms of capacity how you do it. How old is the data that we use in terms of trying to make these decisions about where schools need to be
The
built?
data that I was quoting is very up to date. We do regular counts of the number of students in our schools. And so the count that is the most official number that we use kind of on an ongoing basis is a 40-day count. After students have been in school about 2 months, then the normal comings and goings that happen at the beginning of the school year are incorporated into that 40-day count. We count all throughout the year as well. The capacity numbers that I gave about how much a school can hold, we regularly contract with an outside consultant to go in to review that. And that consultant had just completed the study, and that's incorporated into the number that I shared.
Okay, so I hold in my hand the last set of questions, all right? So I know this has been kind of hit or miss. We're taking the questions as quickly as we can. We're going to get through these, and then it's about 8:15, and then we're going to open it up for any questions from the mics, okay? And then at the end, look, here's what I'll say. We weren't exactly sure how this meeting was going to go. We wanted to lay out information and get feedback in. I think the questions have been really good. Lot of questions, but one of the questions that I would have is, where do we go from here? Doesn't mean that we got everything answered, and it doesn't mean that people felt like they left with a thorough understanding of what's going to happen in this area. So I'm gonna think through it as I ask these questions and come up with an idea about how you can send us information, or we're going to send out a blanket email to everybody and then invite people to comment back and say, I would have rather done it this way, or what other steps that we need to take. So be thinking about that. Okay, here's the last set of questions, and it's going to be kind of a combination of stuff. What will be the commitment by the mayor's office and the Metro Council for continued capital investment in Mill Ridge Park for the spring 2023 capital spending plan? Mr. Hester, you may not know, but the question is yours.
So, what was the first part?
Mill Ridge, the commitment by the mayor's office and the Metro Council for continued capital investment.
Yeah, we're very supportive of continued capital investment in Mill Ridge Park. The phase 1 completion is close, and then we've got phase 2 lined up. It's going to be a really incredibly popular park. It's going to be important for this area, and we would very much like to have additional funding to keep going with that.
Okay, I hope the council members heard you, okay? Okay, I'm looking through these. Some of these have been asked. Scott Potter, I take my trash recycling to Metro South. If I take 3 bags each day, it is free. It takes me 20 minutes each way in light of traffic. If I wait and go once each 10 days, I get charged for doing what saves gas time is the same amount of trash. Can this plan be adjusted? Do you know what we're talking about?
Not specifically. John, can you address that?
Mr. John Honeysucker.
You can y'all can clap.
I think he got the biggest applause.
Well, I've been sitting here the longest, and I had to wake up at some point. So, the question was about the trash. Was it 3 bags or somebody tell me the question?
It's Twana. I think it was your question.
So I can take trash over there 3 bags at a time.
Right.
Every day.
Correct.
And it's free. But you spend more time in traffic, more fuel, with another vehicle on the interstate. Can something be worked out in that plan, adjusted, so that people can take the same amount of trash, but do it in fewer trips?
Well, that's something that I definitely want to discuss with the council members to see if we could work through that. I don't want to commit to that right now, but I will say, as you know, I'm one that's very transparent. I will look at that and take that question and see if that's something that the council will look at adjusting for us to make that happen for the constituents.
Okay. You know where Mr. Honeysucker is. You can find him. All right. All right. Next, the last set of questions. So for Mr. Potter, what about adding trash traps in Mill Creek? Great devices available now. Please consider using them. I guess it's to catch any type of trash that's going through.
Yeah, That sounds really good in theory, but when we get a 2-inch rain, those trash traps are going to disappear. So it's, because y'all know Mill Creek is very flashy, and environmentally, I'm not sure it'd be supportable, but operationally, they'd be destroyed in the first rain event. Tom, do you agree with that? Yeah. It's, Mill Creek is very flashy, and it can raise several feet in 30 minutes. So I just don't think that's going to be a workable solution.
Okay. All right, I'm getting, there's a lot more questions about like overflow sewage running into Mill Creek, all this trash being run into plastic debris, styrofoam containers, ending up in Mill Creek. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do is I'll put them all together and then send them to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see, homeless community needs to be addressed. That's, that's an issue for Metro Social Services, I think. To some extent, the police department. So I may pass those along to social services and make sure they know about where the concerns are about needs addressing. Also, aggressive and careless drivers racing. I think we've already handled that one. There seems to be concerns about trash pickup and the payment of trash pickup. Okay, our HOA neighborhood, Lakeside Cove in Davidson County, our huge complaints that we have to pay for our trash pickup. How can we change that? I think it's an HOA that's paying internally for their own internal trash pickup.
That's just how it's set up in the code presently. So that would never require a code change.
Say it again, just in case.
That would require a code change.
Okay. All right. So talk to council members about that one. Let's see. What's the plans for the Taco John's building? Anybody know? There was also, I think, a Checkers. Anybody know what's going on over there? Councilmember Stiles? Councilmember Stiles, there is nothing, absolutely nothing going on in those two buildings. Is that right?
So the building that was going to be a Taco John's is going to be a beggar pizza out of Chicago style pizza. The Checkers building, they're still figuring out some legal issues, so I'll be able to announce that shortly. It isn't going to be a Checkers. So, the pizza, when is the pizza shop coming? We just so maybe that's beggars, I do not have a date on. As soon as I have it, I'll post it. And I just all the time.
All right. So I think I've got one last question, and I'm not sure exactly how to answer this one. Davidson County lost 11,000 people last year due to housing costs. Antioch is one of the few relatively affordable areas of town. How can we increase the affordability here so our seniors and others are not being pushed out of the county? Ms. Milligan, I may ask you that. What do you see in terms of a lot of the development that seems to be going on out here? Now, what I'll say is that when I was driving around with Tawana, people were talking about these houses of $350,000 to $400,000 houses or somewhere in that neighborhood. In Nashville, some people consider that affordable. In some places, that's not considered affordable. What do you see in terms of some of the developments that are going on around here?
So I don't have specific numbers, but let me just talk a little bit generally about housing. I don't know how many are aware, but the planning department within the last year or so actually has now a housing division within the planning department. And that housing division is charged with administering the Barnes Fund for affordable housing, which has increased tremendously in regards to the amount of money that is within that fund. And that is a fund that goes for building of affordable housing at certain percentages based on area median income. And so that's one of the things that our housing team does. Another thing that they are working on is a comprehensive plan related to housing sort of across the county to look at all of these things. We heard it in Nashville Next. I think the affordable housing meeting that happened during Nashville Next was one of the most well-attended meetings because it is such a concern. And so our housing team is coming up with a plan to look at and sort of determine where we are with housing across the spectrum of ranges of cost. I will say we do have a situation that we're sort of in from a regulatory perspective with the state, where we are somewhat limited in what we can require as it relates to affordable housing. And so we do have our hands tied a bit when it comes to the city actually requiring a private developer to develop affordable housing. But with our housing team now, which has 5 people on staff and is continuing to grow, we're really dialing in and focusing on that issue and better understanding where the challenges and roadblocks are and how we can overcome those.
Okay. All right, so it's about 8:27. I have gone through as many of these questions as I can. We've tried to merge some of the stuff together. We're going to make sure that we get all the questions answered, and we've got hopefully everybody's email. So 2 things. One is that we're going to try to send out a blast email tomorrow to everybody who was here and ask for your opinion on what you thought was good and what you didn't think was good about this meeting. It's okay, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. It may hurt their feelings, but it's not gonna hurt mine. What we're trying to do is figure out how we can better improve these things. And you may wanna have another meeting, and you may wanna have it more focused on something in particular or drill down into specifics where somebody mentioned maybe we should have a charrette. Everybody know what a charrette is? Fancy name for having 3 meetings like back to back to back, where you're actually looking at something and trying to help design it, those types of things. Tell us what you think, okay? We don't typically get this many councilmatic districts together to host a meeting. This was an attempt to try to do something a little different because this area seems to be booming so quickly. We wanted to make sure people were paying attention, okay? Now, your council members have been driving this. This is a chance to bring everybody together. So we'll send something out so you can let us know about that. Again, we're going to get your questions answered. We've got about 30 minutes left. Does anybody want to come up here and have a question? I knew Twana would want to do it, so it's just a matter of time. She was already at the microphone. If you have a question, come on up. We got about 30 minutes, and I don't know whether it's storming outside. I hear something going on out there. So, Twana, if we all get stuck, we're right in your truck. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all, council members from all over the Southeast for being here. I hope everybody in the audience realizes how fortunate we are to have the access to our elected officials that we have. And we may not always be this fortunate. We may not always have this many council members to reach out to. But you can call them, you can email them, you can reach out to these department heads here. They answer the phone, they answer emails. We are very, very fortunate in Davidson County. And some of them drove a long time to get here tonight, so we appreciate that very much. I hope this is not the only opportunity. I really earnestly believe this is a Southeast issue. And we can't look at it just within one council district. We have to look at it more globally. Every department here is grossly understaffed, and I recognize that. I'm not sure that you all feel the freedom to say that, but personally, I don't believe that it's possible for you to each fully address every issue with our current level of budgets and staff. I just don't think it's humanly possible. You're doing too much. And we don't have the tax base that we need to plan for 100 years out. And that's really what would be the ideal thing, is if we could plan today what we're gonna need in 100 years. But taxpayers can't pay more, and the state doesn't allow the impact fees that would make the developers pay more. So really, I don't understand how it's sustainable. I want it to be, but I don't understand how it is. So how can we plan for 100 years from now so that we don't have 10-inch water mains breaking underground, and so that we're not 400 to 500 police officers short, and we're not 25 codes inspectors short, and not having a weekend shift that could actually go out and catch weekend codes violators. I mean, they all just wait till Sunday to do what they don't want to get caught doing. How do we engage better as a community? Because you've got a whole pile of people here who cared enough to get out here tonight and come listen to all of these answers. And how can we help as residents and voters? And when do we do this again? Because we don't need to wait so long. I earnestly believe we need to get together more often. I know it takes your evening away from you, but we really appreciate it because we really feel like we've kind of been treading water out here. We're so far behind. And we know it's not us, we know it's the whole city, but it feels like we're further behind and getting more things at once. So that's a lot, but thank you very much. We appreciate you all.
Sure. Thanks, Swana. I think the idea, again, is sort of, this was a first attempt, like I said, to try to lay all this stuff out. What I'd be interested to know, and I'd like to hear from different people, not necessarily tonight, but you can do it whenever you want to, if this email blast goes out, is to let us know how you want to proceed. So, you know, do you want to do a vision plan for 25 years down the road? And how, is that what you want to do? I know you're talking about how do we make sure the infrastructure is good for the next 100 years. How would you propose putting a group like this together, even inviting even more people to come to the table? And how would you kind of lay it out so that we actually, I mean, we got so many different questions. We got everything from a stadium question to, you know, making sure that we post the slides. But you may want to drill it down a little further into how do we take pieces of this area and make sure that with all the growth going on, you're looking at road improvements, sidewalk improvements, you know, making sure that people don't park on the sides of the road and block ambulances and the fire trucks and so forth. That's what I think I'm looking for to figure out where we go next. So I don't think this is hopefully not the end. It may just be the beginning of a process to keep people talking about what the needs are in this community. But I would ask everybody to share their information. And I assume you're going to share it just like everybody else. Is that right? I figured I'd hear from you. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, and I echo what Tawana was saying. I appreciate everyone coming out. But I want to come to the mic because there is an urgency. We've been talking about this now for over a year. We met at your office. We drove around with Tawana. We've been talking about the urgency of what's happening in the Southeast, and I think a lot of people showed up tonight because there's some urgent issues happening globally with everything we can think of as it relates to schools, as it relates to all of our infrastructure issue, traffic, roads, police, all of those good things. And it just seems, and this is, I guess it is a critique, even though I'm not trying to be, confrontational, it seems like we're getting too generic of an answer. We're working on it, we're thinking about it, we're talking about it. The reality is, though, that we are living in it right now. And while I appreciate your reaching out and saying, how should this occur? We can tell you how it hurts, but we don't necessarily have all the answers. And so I'm just making a request that we add some urgency to some of this because it's urgently affecting the people that live here. When I heard the questions earlier about having too many people living in houses and too many cars on the street, that's because people need to live in houses together so they can afford to live in the city. And so a lot of those issues are just compounded and making the situation much worse, as I'm sure you all know. But I'm just asking, when we answer questions, can we give some dates? Can we put some urgency around some of this stuff? Because we're dealing with some very urgent issues. When I heard the question about the police, I think the vacancy rate we had back in 2014 is still the vacancy we had now, but our numbers aren't the same. And so when you look at it from that perspective and do that analysis, then Southeast is way behind what everybody else is getting. We just recently had Xfinity and some other of the large cable companies admit that they charge higher rates for internet, and they have slower speeds. There are some real issues that have to be dealt with, and we can't deal with it from a general, let's work on it. We got to have some urgency on some of this stuff. That's really all I wanted to say.
I think she got the most applause of anybody, I'm just saying. Okay, appreciate the comments. Okay, anybody else want to say something tonight? Yep, come on up. Come on up to the mic just so we can pick you up, okay? And if you want to come on up, if you have something to say, come on up.
Thank you. Hi. And again, thank you everyone for coming. The more the merrier, and it has a much larger impact. So if we can get more at the next meeting, even better. My comment is very basic. It's very, very basic. Okay. Obviously, we don't have the infrastructure. Obviously, we all know that. We deal with it every day. Traffic, and just all over. It's suffocating us as it is. With my daughter attended the last a public council meeting and spoke on it because she looked at me and she said, Mom, she said, why don't we tell the developers to come back after the infrastructure's in place? Okay, just as simple as that. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. We need to stop where we are right now, let the infrastructure come in, put the cart before the horse before the cart, whatever, but we need to have the infrastructure in place so that we can safely and effectively manage the growth. If the growth happens first, the suffocation is already in place. It's only going to get worse. Can we stop the development, halt it until this happens? It's going to happen. I know, but it's not happening right now. So can we please just stop, halt it until some of these things happen? That's all we're asking. We're not trying to stop it completely. We know the growth is going to happen. We get it. We just want it to happen the way it should. So it's effective, so it's safe and comfortable for the community. We already live here. We already live here. We already live in this every single day, and the pressure that it's putting on us. So we're just asking to please halt. Can that be done?
What do you all think? So the question had come through before, Lisa, because I was looking at you in terms of the people being concerned about the infrastructure before the development hits. I know there's a council member of Virtue tried a moratorium. You tried to do it. Yeah. So the efforts have been tried before. And I'm not putting anybody on the spot because I think the question is really good. When you think about it, it's like, why do we overburden our system? Why don't we get the system straight before everybody come in? So does anybody have a comment, or is this one of those questions that we need to write down and then we need to think about it? Because I know we have processes in place, and here comes the developers and planning changes and things like that, and they come before us. But I think the point's well made. Anybody got a response? I don't know if y'all,
I like that question because it's the chicken and the egg kind of thing where we have the chicken, but we don't, we're thinking, okay, we got a chicken, we're going to have an egg. We put the development ahead of the infrastructure to support it. And it's not something I even thought about until just now, because in my neighborhood, there appears to be sufficient infrastructure for the development that's going on so that people aren't asking that question. But it does beg the question of when do you decide to...
Remember, non-confrontational.
Right.
We all love each other in here.
I'm being nice.
Yeah, it's like, when do you decide to build a subdivision? Do you just go ahead and build it because the land's available and you have systems to tie into that may be adequate today, but as those houses get built out, it becomes inadequate? Or do you say, okay, well, we're going to have to wait until we get a bigger pipe to support that subdivision? We're just not ready for that right now. It's interesting. That's a great question. I'm glad that was asked.
I do think that's one that we probably need to ponder on and then come back to, because there is some property rights that come into play. But I do think we need to dive into that a little bit deeper as staff. I think every department understands what infrastructure needs they have, and they probably have an idea of how long it's going to take to build it out. So the idea of what that would take to do it and not affect someone's property rights that would actually lead to a lawsuit against the city, which is just more dollars and taxpayer dollars spent that we would lose. So there is a balance, but I would say let us ponder on that and let us dig a little bit deeper and then have a better answer to come back as to what it would take or what that could look like. Do y'all agree with that?
We would really appreciate that
Yeah,
because
it was a great question.
That's been on our minds like you cannot imagine. We all just see subdivision after subdivision after subdivision. It's like, where are they going to drive? How are they going to get from east to west, from north to south? They're going to go right through the Cane Ridge community is what they're going to do. So, I mean, we see it happening. So we would really appreciate, like the woman before me said, some timelines. But like I said, please consider just putting a halt on that development until things are in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Question? All right. Another good question. Go ahead.
Well, my question is that I have asked, I think, Councilman Stiles about this in passing, but I'm going to ask a forum of it quickly. How can we have a CSX, TDOT, NDOT to the table about how the intersections of 24, the railroad, all up and all through Hickory Hollow, how it looks? I mean, I've gone to in other parts of like in Sumner County, and their overpasses are really nice. It's all manicured. It's all neat. There's no brush there. But when you come into the southeast corridor, it looks bad. It really looks bad. And, you know, and I've lived here for 17, 18 years. And so when I lived in Glencliff, I mean, I've seen how everybody has a hand on their neighborhood intersection. Brentwood has a community, they come and do theirs, I've been told. But, you know, how can people come to the table and just saying that that's their responsibility and they're not gonna do anything? From what I've heard, I don't have the basis of that. But, you know, I care about my community, and I'm like everybody here, all the concerns, I echo them. But, you know, I think that our infrastructure, like the lady said, we're just growing so fast that we're just putting a Band-Aid on, just, you know, get it done. And I thank everybody who I call on the hub, because I call the hub all the time, because I love my community, because I'm one of the people who's over 65 now, and they call me endlessly to pay for me to buy my house. And I said, well, where can I go? And there's nowhere for me to go. So this is our community, and we just want the Southeast Corridor to reflect it. And there's so much land here, but we want it to be green space, and we want it to have it for our kids, for our future.
Great. Good question. Diana, you want to handle that one? Or- Okay, Brian.
That is a great question. So we have actually had some good successes here recently with CSX, working with them. We actually had them actually support us in developing a grant. They actually helped write for us, a grant for us to look at that crossing on Bell Road and looking at enhancing that crossing. And also, in addition to that, looking at the crossing at Antioch, Pike, and Blue Hole, that at-grade crossing there in between that intersection and Uma intersection, just above that. So yes, looking at that, looking at how we can actually improve that. There will be public engagement as part of that process when we are. I feel confident that we're going to be awarded that grant, to be honest.
All right. Somebody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Oh, okay. Nobody else on this question? We're good?
Yep, he's got it.
Good. You know where to find us. Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you. Good evening. I really liked how you guys did this whole
presentation. It was an experiment, but I think it's a good experiment. I appreciate everybody's time this evening. I moved here almost 10 years ago from Richmond, Virginia. Richmond, Virginia is ahead of you guys in the curve on a lot of stuff, but actually went through very, very similar pains and growth. Chesterfield County is basically what Nashville is right now. A mess when it comes to development before infrastructure. They had to go back and refit everything. It took them 20 years at least. The county north of Richmond, Hanover, saw the mess and actually took steps to make sure it didn't happen in Hanover so that they did have green spaces, et cetera. One of the things they did was how many houses you can build an acre. So that is one thing. It wouldn't take anybody's rights away from their property when these huge developments, when we're talking, no, we really don't need 3 houses on 1 acre, that kind of thing. And that's what we're seeing. And that's the kind of impact on the infrastructure we're seeing with the roads, et cetera. So I would suggest to reach out to Chesterfield County and Hanover County in Virginia and talk to their planning commissions. Ask them what mistakes they made. Because I think it's important to learn from others' lessons, particularly when I see the exact same thing happening here in this area. I really like this area. I don't plan on leaving. I've been here almost 10 years, like I said. And I think it's not a matter, sir, of the chicken or the egg. It's the cart before the horse. Okay? You have to do it sequentially. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, and I did a lot of process improvement, and that is the kind of thing you do. You have to do it in a logical progression. You just cannot do it we're going to make a subdivision over here. You dump all that. Look at the corridor right now in Nolensville. It's a mess. They should have already had a 4-lane highway through there before they started putting all those subdivisions in. That's just a simple example. But thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Sure, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I've lived here in Southeast Nashville for 20 years, moved here from Atlanta, and raised 4 kids. Kids all went through the school system. My concern is more, and I don't know if it's for you, Mr. Shulman, as far as the city council, because Southeast Nashville, there are so many different districts that cover this area. Is there a way to get the city council people, and maybe that's something y'all can address together, to get together to be one unified voice for this area? Because we're separated by 1 street here, 2 streets here, but we're all Southeast Nashville. And anything that affects 32 affects 33, affects all of us. And that's the part that I feel we're missing, that there's no unification in Southeast Nashville. And if we could see that as community leaders, as neighbors, residents, I think that would help, because I feel that a lot of times there's just a lot of separation in city council, and things are just not being addressed. So again, it's not for the members, but Mr. Shulman, city council ladies, people, is there a way that can be done? Can we get together and work something out to help everybody? Maybe? That's all.
Let me let them work on it, okay? Because I know they work together a lot of the times, but what you're talking about is some type of more of a caucus type thing of something like that.
Exactly.
And so let them kind of figure it out and see if this is something they want to do. Now remember, I did 12 council districts. We were trying to hit as many people as we can. Some of them are pretty far up north. They're north of the southeast area, like Aaron Evans district is up. Russ Bradford's is near the airport. But we wanted to make sure we included as many people as we can. But why don't we let them kind of work through it, and then they'll get back in touch, okay?
All right, thank you.
It's a good question. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Carl Harris. Thank you all again for coming out and doing this. I really appreciate this very much. I've been here in King Ridge area, Southeast Davidson for 22 years. And one of the slides you showed up there earlier, don't have to go back to it, but you had a lot of purple dots on it about all these developments that are going, all these developers that are here. They're lined up out the door for a mile, it seems like. All of them build facilities, apartments, houses on the existing infrastructure. What's in the plan to get those developers to help pay for some of this stuff rather than just making us as taxpayer pay for it all the time? They're building things. They could amortize the cost of some of this infrastructure over their development efforts instead of just putting it all burden on the national tax system.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, if something is coming in, let's say property was zoned multifamily and a multifamily project is coming in to be built, when that comes into the codes department, it is reviewed by all of the agencies, including NDOT. And so if there are needed infrastructure improvements, those are included with the development. It's the same way if we're looking at an SP, which is a specific plan rezoning. When we review those, we would have a traffic study, if there's any needed updates to stormwater infrastructure or on-site stormwater to be provided, those are included in the development at the responsibility of the developer. Any sort of water line improvements for size increases, and they have to go through capacity studies for water and sewer in advance of any sort of development to make sure that there is water and sewer capacity available to serve those developments. And so we are certainly looking at all of that when developments are coming in and making sure that if there is a sidewalk, but it needs to be upgraded, that sidewalk is upgraded with the development to meet our current standards. And so we certainly do look at those when new developments are coming in, be it through straight zoning or with an SP.
Okay. Next question. I think we have time for two more. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joelle Bowers. To everyone here, those of you that don't know, I'm actually class of 85, graduate of Antioch. My sons have also graduated here. I taught here as well, amongst other all over the state of Tennessee, but about 2 decades right here. So start Antioch and for Cambridge and so on. I love this place. This place is my home. Not just is my home, it's all that reside here now. I believe that we can do this together. I honestly do. But at this point, I'm coming and asking for accountability here and that we need some expertise in these positions, whether it be for the leadership of the council, the distinguished staff, or whoever is up here. It's time that we have some knowledge in this. The overlay for Antioch, it's not happening. This is not good, okay? That exit that was designed over there right off of Hickory Hollow, how many accidents have been there? How many accidents are still happening on a daily basis? That's poor design. When we are dealing with now, we're asking what I'm gonna ask, and I heard others, and I'm there as well. We put a halt until we can come together and figure out how to get this area back where it needs to be. As far as good people here, we heard the crime report discussed. According to the density and population, we are doing okay here. That's by the grace of God and the goodness of the people who have come. But it is designed that way. What you guys have not seen, all these people that come in and out of here, I want to know on statistics, how many crimes are done actually by citizens from 37013 or Southeast Nashville versus what we leave in here. It is time now. No more exits, no more checkers. No more some of these things. We need to develop something where we want to eat. We have a place to eat. We have infrastructure. Why are we building roads? I have nothing against charter schools or public schools. I suggest they all do well. There's plenty of rooms. We are overcrowded here. There are plenty of rooms. The infrastructure. Do not buildings, apartments, all of those, they're out of codes. They're too close. If something catches on fire or something happens, the next building will as well. A car can go within 10 feet off and be in apartment buildings right down the road. These kids come to and from school, they can't walk. They cannot get here, okay? It's just not possible. We can fix those things. Joy, before you was also Jacobia and different. I've been talking sidewalks for I don't know how long. Seriously. But you would build apartments, subdivisions, all of that. Well, we need that, as well as you're talking about main roads. Let's do Nolensville Road. Let's do Bell Road. Let's do Murfreesboro Road. It doesn't matter. TDOT, guess what? Those those corridors that feed into that are still traffic. We need to do something about that. The bus route, all these streets, Harding Place, you can go from downtown, and once you get into Thompson Lane, all the way to where the edge of Davidson County, and then it becomes Rutherford County. Those are long roads like that. Those buses can come up and down and back and forth. That could at least help with the transportation and mobility here as well. There's a food drought. There's a food drought. In order to get something to eat, I either have to pay double for Grubhub or something like that to bring me some food, or I have to go to, once upon a time, Antioch had everything, but now I drive to Smyrna or Mount Juliet or go downtown or Brentwood. Look, we have nothing here. We can do this, you guys. We really can, and we want to help. I do not mean to be, if I'm in any way upset. I'm looking at all you guys here, and I'm like, this is awesome. I expected more. But to be honest, a lot of people are frustrated and feel like we have no choice, and we're out here having to suffer through this on a daily basis. Thank you.
So it is 8:58. We're supposed to be finished in 2 minutes.
Well, I don't know if I will meet that, but I may have a little.
You may not have any choice. We got to be out of here in 2 minutes.
Perspective. The first thing I noticed when the meeting was being held here, we're holding a meeting for Southeast Nashville at a place that you can only get to by a car. There's no transit access here, no sidewalks, no bikeways. I'm probably the only one who got here without driving a car. I rode my bike because I don't own a car. 6 months ago, I sold my car. I get around everywhere on my bike, on foot, or on the 55 bus line. And when I tell people that, I can walk to a grocery store in 3 minutes. I have a dozen restaurants a 5-minute walk away from me. I bike to school where I teach every day. It takes about 10 minutes. They think I live in East Nashville or Wedgwood, Houston, or somewhere downtown, and I don't. I live here in Antioch. I live right behind the Thorntons on Bell Road near the mall. And we have all of these areas where we do have fast, frequent transit, 10-minute frequency all day. We have these things in Antioch, and I bike by them every day, and it's a bunch of single-family zoning. We have these huge corridors where we should be building 3, 4, 10-story tall buildings where we have the infrastructure, where we have the walkability, the transit, the bike lanes, all of that stuff. And instead, we go and we build single-family homes on the tops of hills that no one wants anything developed on. We need to prioritize upzoning along these corridors, Murfreesboro Pike, Nolensville Pike, where we already have this existing transit infrastructure. You all may not know this, but the Murfreesboro Pike corridor is the second highest ridership transit line in the state. The first highest ridership line is Dollywood. So it is the highest ridership real transit line that actually moves people in the state, and yet we provide it with a bunch of single-family zoning. That should be our density. It should be concentrated in these areas. So for everyone on stage, council members, and in the audience, the real way that we can solve this is by building housing, building what we need, building that density where it's appropriate. And because we've been so reluctant to allow that on our corridors, that's why developers are reaching out into whatever parcel of land they can grab, because we haven't allowed them to build where they should. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It is 9 o'clock. Have you got a quick question?
I'll defer.
Once you ask the question, and then we may.
So one, thank you. My name is Dave Martin, and I am a developer. Dun, dun, dun. So I am one of the people that does develop in Southeast. I've worked with many of our council people here, and I think that outside of development, what we need is responsible development. I took a minute to see if I was even going to speak here today and introduce myself as a developer, but I am, because not only am I proud of what I do, but I'm proud of how I do it, and even within this district. So I know with the shortage of time here, I mean, I'll stay out here and talk to anyone, but I know that some of the things we've heard today regarding wanting more restaurants and retail, that requires density. Regarding wanting more infrastructure, that requires density and rooftops. Those things that, you know, our officials have come out to do, which we appreciate, require support from folks like myself that are developers that do pay to help put infrastructure in. Nashville has not been an if you build it, they will come type of city. We are building it as we grow because of the great, you know, city we have. We have people moving in here, but I do believe that this is something we can fix. Responsible development is something that we have to be intentional about. And I know that fellow developers like myself, I know I see a couple other ones in here, are very much committed to doing that. I live in 31. My mother lives in 31. My wife taught at Cane Ridge Elementary. My sister is the assistant principal at AZ Kelly. I'm here and I'm looking forward to working with this community responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council announcement, Vice Mayor, real fast.
Put that on the email. We're learning. Okay.
Thank you so much. Councilwoman Taneka Vercher, there is a community meeting for District 28. That's December 3rd, this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's at Family of Faith Church. I have the information outdoors at the table. This is an important rezoning proposal because this can potentially set a precedent out here in our area. So encouraging all of you to come. Also, today is Giving Tuesday. Let's support our nonprofits out here in our area, our friends of Mill Ridge Park, also Turk and Moves and Grooves. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Hey, as you all are leaving, surveys go out there. Please thank the people who came from the different departments. They did an excellent job. All right. Thank the council members, the staff. Thank everybody. You all have a good night. Be safe.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.